Chapter 4997 was just that Hong Ling packed her things and left. Only Hei Xinjiu and the angry little silver snake were left in the room. Hei Xinjiu saw that the little silver snake was so angry that its vertical pupils were about to cross over. She felt that the anger in her heart had dissipated a lot. She hummed a little song and pondered over her next step. After the old fox released the news of the Zen sect, the Mu family, Zhuang family, and Qi family would probably restrain themselves a lot. However, they would not stop there. They would definitely cause some trouble. However, these were all matters that the old fox should consider. It had nothing to do with her. Her priority now was to cultivate well. Counting the days, Mount Meru should be struck by lightning again. It was simply wonderful. However, cultivating step by step was too slow. It would be great if there was a way to completely stimulate the potential in her body. She recalled what Qi Ying had said. In her previous life, the relationship between her and the gigolo had developed in the heavy cloud continent. When she had time, she could go out for a stroll. Perhaps she would have some unexpected gains. Of course, she could not do it now. Whether it was the Divine Devil Hall or the other three families, they would most likely be disadvantageous to her. Fortunately, she had already stirred up the water in the heavy cloud continent. As long as she planned carefully, she would definitely be able to achieve her wish. The small silver snake in the corner saw Yun Chujia's sudden joy and worry. Its eyes were very bright, and the anger in its heart suddenly dissipated. There was even a strange hint of sweetness. After a certain honored guest realized this, the entire snake was instantly in a bad mood. What was wrong with him? After being scolded and tormented by that ugly girl, he actually still felt a hint of sweetness? Has he gone mad? After thinking for a while, he felt that he must be feeling guilty. After all, he had lost his memory and had forgotten about his fiancée. Guilt was inevitable. Yes, that was it. It was guilt. That was all. After thinking about understanding, he gathered his thoughts and began to cultivate. A man and a snake were busy with their own things. However, the room was filled with a faint sense of peace and beauty. The next day, Yun Chujiu arrived at the ancestral residence early, but she did not attend the class. The spiritual power class was no longer of any use to her, because she was already certain that she could not conjure a spiritual beast to assist her. As for the body refining class, there was no need for her to attend it. She might as well go to the library to see if there were any books on alchemy and talisman making. Thus, this fellow went to find housekeeper Sue. I finished reading the books on the first floor of the library. I plan to go to the second floor to take a look, but my points are not enough. Help me think of a way. Housekeeper Sue looked at Hei Xinjiu, who was playing truant, and looked troubled. Miss Cousin, there are rules in the ancestral residence. If you don't have enough points, you won't be able to go to the second floor. I can't do anything about it. Yun Chujiu glanced at him. Housekeeper Sue, you took 10,000 high-grade spirit stones from me 2 days ago. Do you want to just take money and not do anything? If you don't help me think of a way today, they'll go to the ancestor and complain that you're blackmailing me. Housekeeper Sue wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He was wondering why this iron rooster had plucked feathers 2 days ago. So it was poisonous feathers. Miss Cousin, I really have no choice. This rule was set by the ancestor. Why don't you go and ask the ancestor? Seeing that housekeeper Sue was about to cry, Yun Chujiu knew that he really had no choice. She said with a smile, Housekeeper Sue, I was just teasing you. You didn't take it seriously, right? Chapter 4998 was just a little fox. What could Housekeeper Sue say? He could only shake his head with a bitter smile. Yun Chujiu comforted Housekeeper Sue with a few more hypocritical words before she arrived outside the Lan family's patriarch's courtyard. After the guard reported the news, Hei Xinjiu hopped into the patriarch's study room. Patriarch, little Jiu has come to pay her respects to you. Hei Xinjiu said with a smile. The Lan family's old ancestor snorted, why didn't you go to class? Yun Shujo bared her little white teeth. Old ancestor, my situation is quite special. Even if I went through a lifetime of spiritual power lessons, I wouldn't be able to transform into a spiritual beast to assist me. Therefore, I plan to go to the library to read books. However, I don't have enough points and can't go to the second floor. Please show mercy. To Hei Xinjia's surprise, the Lan family's patriarch agreed immediately. He gave her a token and said, with this token, you can enter the library freely. You can enter any floor. Yun Shujo was so happy that her eyelashes were about to blossom. Thank you, patriarch. I know that you love me the most. I'll take my leave now. I'll come back to pay my respects to you another day. The ancestor of the Lan family nodded, and then Hei Xinjiu left. After Yun Shujo left, an old man wearing a mask appeared in front of the ancestor of the Lan family. Master, are you planning to nurture this Yun Shujo? The ancestor of the Lan family nodded. Luo Chen is the best candidate, but to be on the safe side, it's good to have another candidate. However, she's not qualified yet. Let's wait until after the Divine Relic trial. Master, the Divine Relic trial this time is even more dangerous than usual. After all, the Mu family, Zhuang family, and Qi family will definitely join hands to deal with our Lan family. Do we still have to participate? The masked elder asked uncertainly. The Lan family's ancestor knocked on the table with his finger. Of course we have to participate. The path of cultivation is to fight against the heavens. As for the Mu family, don't they still have that troublemaker? The masked elder, do you mean to let that troublemaker, Yun Shujo, lead the team this time? The masked elder almost blurted out, troublemaker, but he changed his words in the end. After all, no matter how bad it was, he was still a young master. The Lan family's ancestor nodded. That troublemaker is full of bad ideas and has many tricks up her sleeve. She should be able to deal with it. If she can't handle it, then she doesn't have the qualifications to be a candidate. Master, this is a very important matter. If Yun Shujo isn't qualified, then all the young masters who go there will probably die. The price is too high. The old man said with some worry. Chapter 4999 Token. As Lan Luo Yen and the others were still in class, Yun Shujo was the only person in the huge second-floor library. Yes, there was also a snake. Only then did Yun Shujo remember that the ancestor of the Lan family actually did not sense the small silver snake in the sleeve bag. This did not make sense. If the spiritual beast was in the spiritual beast bag, other people would not be able to sense it. However, the sleeve bag did not isolate spiritual sense. How could the ancestor of the Lan family, who had such a high cultivation level, not notice the gigolo? However, she did not ask the little silver snake. After all, who knew if there was any array formation inside the library? It would be terrible if that old fox discovered it. Yun Shujo temporarily put this matter to the back of her mind and began to read the books on the second floor. She planned to first read all the books on alchemy and talismans in the library, and then read other books when she had time. However, to her great disappointment, there were very few books on alchemy and talismans on the second floor. The few dozen books on alchemy and talismans were all already mastered by Yun Shujo. Therefore, she prepared to go to the third floor to take a look. However, she did not expect to coincidentally meet Lan Luo Yen and the others who came up from the first floor just as she was about to walk up the stairs. Lan Luo Yen glanced at Yun Shujo, and it was rare that she did not make a sound. Her lackeys had all had their legs broken by someone. Even if she used her heel to think, she knew that it was Yun Shujo who had done it. Therefore, she now felt both hatred and fear towards Yun Shujo. Lan Luoshan, who was beside her, kindly reminded her, "Little sister Jiu, the third floor requires 2,000 points. You shouldn't have that many points, right? So, don't make things difficult for the guards. You'd better read on the second floor." Yun Shujo curled her lips and took out the token given to her by the ancestor of the Lan family. She waved it. "Sister Luoshan, you don't have to worry. I have the token given to me by the ancestor. I can pass through the library unimpeded. This time, both Lan Luoshan and the others were stunned. What? The ancestor actually gave her the token to pass through? Why? One had to know that even the Great Elder and the others had to rely on their points to enter the corresponding floors, but this troublemaker could pass through without any obstruction. The ancestor was too biased. Yun Shujo looked at their envious and jealous expressions and curled her lips. Are you guys feeling very unbalanced? Do you feel very angry? There's no choice. The old ancestor only dotes on me. Don't you think it's infuriating? Ha ha ha. Lan Luoyen saw that Yun Shujo had left, so she gritted her teeth and said, "This bitch is getting more and more arrogant. She really deserves to die." When Lan Luoshan heard that, her eyes flashed and she said, "Forget it. She is now the old ancestor's beloved flesh and blood. We, the direct descendants, are not as good as a person with another surname." Lan Lushan's words made the people present even more dissatisfied. Yes, they were all surnamed Lan, and that bitch was surnamed Yun. Was our ancestor muddle-headed? When Lan Luoshan saw the reactions of the crowd, she felt proud in her heart. Yun Shujo, that idiot, was so arrogant and stupid to the extreme. This time, she did not have to make a move. The others would have to think of a way to get rid of her. Yun Shujo had naturally thought of this, but she had already latched onto the old ancestor's thigh, and she had also hooked up with the Zen sect. She did not put Lan Luoshan and the others in her eyes at all. They were just a bunch of clowns. Moreover, the matter of her having a token would be spread out sooner or later. She might as well get angry at them. Chapter 5000, Dinner. Yun Shujo went to the third floor to sweep the area, but the result was still very disappointing. There were only about a dozen books on talisman seals and alchemy in the entire third floor. Yun Shujo also knew about the things recorded on them. This fellow could only go to the fourth and fifth floor to sweep again. In the end, he only found a few books on talisman seals and alchemy that could only be considered average. This fellow could not help but be greatly disappointed. He had thought that the Lan family's book collection pavilion would have many related books, but he did not expect to get so many. This fellow thought for a moment and understood. The Lan family members basically all had water spirit roots. Other spirit roots were very few, so they were not interested in making talismans and alchemy. In addition, high-level alchemy and high-level talisman making were confidential. It was no wonder that the Lan family's book collection pavilion did not have high-level alchemy and talisman-making books. Fortunately, this guy had a big heart. He felt that it was better to have them than not to have them, so he memorized all the things recorded in those books. Yun Shujo was about to read other books, but because it was the stipulated time, she had to leave the library and prepare to come back the next day to read. Yun Shujo returned to the third room, washed up briefly, and began to eat dinner. This guy now had the awareness to feed the small silver snake, so the man and the snake ate dinner together. Yun Shujo remembered the question she had during the day and asked, "Why didn't that old fox sense your presence?" The small silver snake said coldly, "Of course it was because I used a method to conceal my aura." "Oh right, when you were talking to him today, I sensed that there was another person in the room, and his cultivation level was quite high." Yun Shujo thought that the person was old Tua, so she didn't care too much. Anyway, with the Zen sect, that old fox didn't dare to really do anything to her. Soon, Yun Shujo finished eating. She held her chin and looked at the small silver snake that hadn't finished eating. Although the small silver snake also had 4 small claws, it was obviously not very agile, so it ate very slowly. Even so, the noble aura that emitted from its bones was still pleasing to Hei Xinjia's eyes. This guy thought sourly in his heart that even if the pretty boy turned into a pig, he would probably have a halo of his own. As this guy was thinking, he saw the small silver snake stop its movement and said in a deep voice, "The pressure outside has become stronger." Yun Shujo was stunned at first and then ran out of the house. It was now evening. There was still a hint of the setting sun in the sky, but at this time, the sky quickly darkened. Yun Shujia's eyes lit up. Could it be that the heavenly thunder had come earlier? This guy immediately jumped into the house and stuffed the small silver snake into his sleeve pocket. Then, he ran out. When Yun Shujio reached the city gate was already closed. Yun Shujio said to the guards, "Open the city gate. I want to go out and do something." The guards looked at each other and hesitated. One of them said, "Miss Yun, you need a token to leave the city at night." "Do you have a token?" Yun Shujio took out a large kitchen knife and said coldly, "Is this thing okay?" The guards, just when they were at a loss, Yun Shujio shouted sternly, "Open the door quickly. I have to go out to do something big. If I'm delayed, you guys will be in big trouble." The guards were still a little hesitant. After all, letting people out of the city privately was a big crime. Chapter 5001 blinded his snake eyes. Just as Yun Shujio was about to force her way in, Yuan Ji ran over from afar. He took out a token and handed it to the guards. When the guards saw this, they opened the city gate. Yun Shujio glanced at Yuan Ji. "Why are you here? Did you arrange a lot of spies outside the third room?" Yuan Ji smiled awkwardly but didn't deny it. "Forget it. Since you helped me out in time, I won't pursue you." "What's the matter? Do you still want to taste the feeling of being struck bald?" Yun Shujio said with a half-smile. Yuan Ji subconsciously touched his hair and said with lingering fear, "I'll stay far away this time. I shouldn't be struck." He didn't want to come from the bottom of his heart, but he was afraid that Yun Shujio would take the opportunity to escape again, so he had to bite the bullet and come. Yun Shujio smiled. "Don't worry, the Lan family is the safest place now. I won't go anywhere. However, if you're willing to follow, then follow." The two of them soon arrived at the foot of Mount Meru. Yuan Ji laughed dryly. "Miss Jiu, I'll wait for you at the foot of the mountain. I won't go any further." Yun Shujio knew that he was afraid that he would be struck by lightning again, so she just smiled and entered Mount Meru. The small silver snake in her sleeve had always been suspicious. Now that only the two of them were left, she asked, "What are you doing here?" "What are you doing here? I feel that the pressure here is stronger than anywhere else. I'm afraid that heavenly lightning is about to descend." Yun Shujio said with a smile, "I'm naturally here to be struck by lightning. You still don't know, right? This Mount Meru will be struck by heavenly lightning once a month, and each time, the heavenly lightning will last for several hours. It's simply a good place that can't be found even with a lantern." The little silver snake was stunned at first, then it roared, "Since you know that the lightning here will last for several hours, why did you come here? Are you stupid?" Yun Shujio was stunned, and then she realized that Di Baiming had lost all his memories about her, so he naturally did not know that she was not afraid of being struck by lightning. Therefore, he explained, "Don't worry, I have a heavenly lightning spiritual root, so I'm not afraid of being struck by lightning. The longer the lightning, the better." A certain person was so angry that he was dumbfounded. This was simply nonsense. He was not a 3-year-old child. Even if he had a heavenly lightning spiritual root, it was impossible for him not to be afraid of being struck by lightning. At most, he would be able to withstand a few more bolts of lightning compared to other spiritual roots. This ugly girl actually ran to a place where lightning was so dense. Wasn't she courting death? Yun Shujio was speechless. "I'm really not afraid of being struck by lightning. I'm not lying to you. Are you afraid of being struck by heavenly lightning? Don't worry about that. Heavenly lightning has a work ethic. Generally speaking, it won't accidentally strike others. When the time comes, it'll just put you somewhere far away from me." The little silver snake became even more anxious when it heard that. It roared, "Ugly girl, you're courting death. Don't tell me that you want to commit suicide because I forgot about you? Or are you sad because of what I said about glutinous rice ball the other day? All of this is my fault. Don't think too hard about it. I'll recover my memory sooner or later." Moreover, your penis isn't small either. It's really not small. It's much bigger than glutinous rice ball. Yun Shujo, she originally wanted to continue explaining, but when she heard the word glutinous rice ball, she decided not to say anything. Even if she did, the amnesiac snake would not believe her. Chapter 5002, I'll roast some spiritual potatoes for you later. The small silver snake saw that Yun Shujo continued to walk forward and had no intention of stopping. It immediately jumped out of its sleeve pocket and wrapped itself around her wrist. It roared, "Stop! You can't go any further. If you persist, I can only stop you by force." Yun Shujo looked at the small silver snake's vertical pupils that had already turned slightly red. She knew that he was really anxious, so she could only stop and say seriously, "I'm really not afraid of being struck by lightning. Think about it. If I didn't have any special abilities, how could I have accompanied you all the way until now? Do you believe me?" The small silver snake saw the bright and confident light in Yun Shujo's eyes, and its heart suddenly stopped. It was actually unable to say anything. Yun Shujo thought that the small silver snake had already believed her words, so she directly coiled the small silver snake on her arm and quickly jumped towards the place that was struck by lightning every time. Perhaps she came faster this time, so when she arrived at the place, she found that the dark clouds were still gathering. For a moment, she could not tell whether it was Wu Yun or not. The little silver snake saw the deep pits on the ground and became even more worried. He thought to himself, if this ugly girl really could not hold on any longer, he could only risk his life to save her. As for why he did this, a certain venerable felt that it was out of responsibility. After all, she was his fiancée, and that was all. Yun Shujo did not know what the little silver snake was thinking. She said with a smile, "It's been a long time since you've eaten a heavenly thunder roasted spiritual potato, right? I'll roast a few for you to try later." The little silver snake, he felt that his ears were playing tricks on him. Heavenly thunder roasted spiritual potato? He had never heard that heavenly thunder could do such a thing. Moreover, this ugly girl's heart was too big. She actually still wanted to eat at this time. After a while, the dark clouds had already gathered together. Yun Shujo took a look and was amused. Wasn't this the dark cloud that had accidentally struck Yuan Ji previously? Actually, Yuan Ji had initially planned to keep his mouth shut, but he was no match for Yun Shujo. He was tricked out by Yun Shujo and almost made Yun Shujo laugh to death. The dark cloud in the sky sneakily looked down. When it saw Yun Shujo, it suddenly felt that the entire cloud was not good. It said that it would not come, but it had to come. That number 250 had said that it would not meet this fiend a few days in advance. Damn it, it had been tricked again. It seemed that he had misused his words. Bah! He was betraying his country. He didn't believe that the stinky girl wasn't afraid of being struck by lightning. This time, she had a lot more lightning spiritual energy than last time. Perhaps, she would really be struck to death. Yun Shujo naturally didn't know that Wu Yun had so many psychological activities. This guy had placed the small silver snake on a crooked tree far away from her. In order to protect him, he had even specially released Buttface and 2 puppets. Although Buttface was useless, he was still a scheming dog. Yun Shujo still trusted him. After Yun Shujo left, Buttface immediately said obsequiously, "Your Excellency, Buttface sends his regards to you." The little silver snake looked at Yun Shujo in the distance and asked coldly, "Is she really not afraid of being struck by lightning?" "Your Excellency, don't worry. The little fairy is a pervert. Not only is she not afraid of being struck by lightning, but she will also trick a few cloud wings from time to time," Buttface said with pride. Chapter 5003 was not for you. When the little silver snake heard this, it felt a little more at ease. Buttface continued, "Your Excellency, you might not know this, but the little fairy has a little Wu Yun. Although it's not as strong as the Wu Yun in the sky, it can still carry the little fairy far." The little silver snake was shocked. What? A little Wu Yun? He had underestimated this ugly girl. In order to gain a good impression, Buttface continued to boast, "Your Excellency, since we have nothing to do, I'll tell you all about the little fairy." The little silver snake hummed and then listened to Buttface's chatter. As he listened to Buttface's narration, the disappointment in his heart became heavier and heavier. Originally, he didn't think that amnesia was a big deal. After all, he had only lost the memory of the ugly girl. But now, as he listened to Buttface's story, he felt as if a large part of his heart was empty. To a certain extent, he didn't seem to be able to compare to Buttface. After all, he and the ugly girl had a lot of common memories. Buttface, who was being smug, suddenly shivered. He looked up and saw the small silver snake's vertical pupils. There was a faint trace of dislike and jealousy. Buttface's head buzzed. It was over. The flatterer had gone up. The dog rolled its eyes and said, "Your Majesty, the little fairy's love for you is like a torrential river. She loves you the most and only loves you. You don't know. After you fainted, the little fairy bit her finger and fed her blood to you without saying a word." A certain honor was shocked and asked in a daze, Why did she feed her blood to me?" "Because her blood can relieve the cold poison in your body. This isn't the first time she has done this. She has fed you a lot of blood in the past." Biming did not hear the rest of Buttface's words because his heart was in a mess. She actually fed him blood? And it was not the first time? In his mind, the moment he woke up, Yunchujia's surprised gaze, and his astonishment when he said the word "scram" suddenly appeared. Biming's heart suddenly ached. This was the first time he blamed himself for losing his memory. He was anxious to find his lost memories. At first, Buttface was still chattering. Later, when he saw the little silver snake getting lost in his own thoughts, he stopped talking. This fellow thought to himself, TSK, even if he lost his memory, he wouldn't be able to escape from the little fairy's grasp. He could be considered to have been eaten alive by the little fairy. However, he didn't know when this jinx would recover. The reason was simple. Ever since the little perverted dragon entered Yunchujia's spirit beast bag, it had been surrounding Peach Blossom and trying to curry favor with her. It had almost angered Buttface to death. Buttface felt that although he did not like Peach Blossom, the dog that was obsessed with love, Peach Blossom was still a female that had pursued him before. Therefore, he could not just watch Peach Blossom be lured by the little perverted dragon. Rumble. 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 The loud rumble interrupted the thoughts of the little silver snake and Buttface. Dozens of bolts of lightning struck Yunchujo from afar. Although the little silver snake already knew that Yunchujo wasn't afraid of lightning strikes, it had only heard about it. Hence, its vertical pupils were filled with worry. Was that ugly girl really not afraid of lightning strikes? Just as the little silver snake was thinking, a few roasted spirit potatoes were thrown over from afar. Dog 2 eagerly said, "Your Majesty, this must be the spirit potatoes that the little fairy used the heavenly lightning to roast for us. Let's eat them while they're hot." After saying that, Dog 2 was about to start eating when it felt the murderous aura on its back. It heard a certain someone coldly say, "It's not us, it's me. There's no share for you." Scram. Chapter 5004 was well mastered, but Face's paw froze instantly. He cursed in his heart. This jinx really uses a dog to face the front, but doesn't use a dog to face the back. He turns hostile faster than flipping through a book. He only knows how to eat alone. Eat, eat. With so many roasted spirit potatoes, it would be better if you choked to death. The little silver snake didn't know about Buttface's rich psychological activities. He pulled all the spirit potatoes in front of him, but he didn't eat them. Instead, he nervously watched the situation in the distance. Wu Yun was so angry that he felt like he was going to faint. That stupid girl actually used heavenly thunder to roast the spiritual potatoes? This was a blatant clamor. She must be struck to death today. However, the ideal was beautiful, but reality had given it a severe blow. After chopping for more than 2 hours, it did not do anything to Yun Chujo. Instead, it let her roast a pile of spiritual potatoes. Well, there was also roast chicken, roast duck, roast goose. Hey, little Yun Yun, let's not talk about other things. Your barbecue skills are much better than the other Wu Yun's. Your control of the fire is just right. He Xinjiu tore off a chicken drumstick and said as she chewed on it. Wu Yun was already extremely furious. He no longer cared about the consequences. He directly gathered the remaining power of lightning into an extremely thick lightning bolt and hacked down towards He Xinjiu. He Xinjiu cried out in fear. What a joke! If such a thick lightning bolt really struck her, even if she didn't die, she would at least lose a layer of skin. This fellow wanted to run, but how could a human be faster than a lightning bolt? Fortunately, this fellow was quick-witted. He threw a flying spirit tool towards the lightning bolt. Although it was painful, it could at least slow down the lightning bolt's falling speed. Moreover, it could also consume a portion of the power of lightning. The huge flying spiritual artifact was directly turned into ashes by the heavenly lightning. He Xinjiu hurriedly threw another flying spiritual artifact to block in front of her, but it was turned into ashes again. He Xinjiu threw 5 flying spiritual artifacts in a row. Seeing that the heavenly lightning was already within the acceptable range, she did not dodge and was struck by the heavenly lightning. After being struck by the heavenly lightning, He Xinjiu pointed at Wu Yun in the sky and cursed, "You son of a bitch! Are you stupid? Don't you know what a slow flow of water is? You actually struck down all of them at once. You prodigal thing! You compensate my flying spiritual artifact." The moment this fellow thought about the hundreds of millions of upper-grade spiritual stones being thrown away just like that, he felt an unbearable pain in his heart. Immediately, he rode on the little Wu Yun and rushed towards the Wu Yun in the sky. The next time will definitely, no, there won't be a next time. When he went back, he would find that damned number 250 to settle the score. Seeing that Wu Yun had drifted away, Yun Chujo spat and landed on the ground again, starting to break through. A moment later, the creature opened his eyes, his face full of displeasure. Because of Wu Yun's recklessness, the power of lightning she absorbed this time was limited. She only broke through 2 levels, from the 3rd level to the 5th level of the extreme spiritual realm. However, because the power of lightning she absorbed was limited, she did not become bald this time. Instead, she became a head of curly hair. Just as she was feeling vexed, she heard a somewhat hoarse voice, "Your clothes are untidy, what a disgrace. Why aren't you changing your clothes?" Yun Chujo looked down. Although she kept putting on clothes during the process of being struck, her clothes were still cut into strips. She could vaguely see the snow-white skin on her arms and legs. She randomly put on a set of clothes. When she looked up, she saw the small silver snake with its eyes closed, but there were 2 bloody lines on its nose. Chapter 5005 was indeed bigger than glutinous rice ball. Yun Chujo pursed her lips when she saw the small silver snake. At that moment, a few scattered thunderclaps came from afar. For some reason, Yun Chujo felt that Yuan Ji was most likely struck again. She curled the corners of her lips and was surprised to find that Butt-Face and the 2 puppets had disappeared. "Where are Butt-Face and puppets number 4 and number 5? She asked in puzzlement. At this moment, Butt-Face's sobbing voice came from a deep pit in the distance. "Little fairy, your majesty forced us to jump into the pit and almost killed me. Hurry up and save us." A certain lord snorted coldly. "Don't look at indecent things." Yun Chujo, the pretty boy, had lost his memory, but his jealousy had not changed. Yun Chujo shook her head and ignored a certain someone who was secretly poking her nose and wiping it. She walked to the side of the deep pit and brought Butt-Face and the 2 puppets up. Butt-Face complained with his spiritual sense, "Little fairy, the gigolo not only made me jump into the pit, but he also didn't give me any spiritual potatoes." Yun Chujo looked at a pile of roasted spiritual potatoes in the distance speechlessly and said, "Don't worry. I'll give you some roasted duck later." But Face immediately turned around and looked at Yun Chujia's curly hair. He said slyly, "Little fairy, your new hairstyle is really nice." Yun Chujio looked at him with appreciation and put away the two puppets and the things that were roasted on the ground. Finally, she picked up the small silver snake and said with a smile, "How is it? I told you I'm not afraid of being struck by lightning, right?" The small silver snake saw Yun Chujia's smiling little face. Although there were black and white lines on it, its little heart inexplicably beat a little fast. It said hesitantly, "Yes, you are indeed not afraid of being struck by lightning." Yun Chujio saw that the small silver snake actually did not argue with her. She could not help but feel puzzled. Has this tsundere changed his character? However, she was in a hurry to return to the city and did not think much about it. Therefore, she put the small silver snake into her sleeve bag and rushed down the mountain. When she reached the foot of the mountain and saw Yuan Ji wearing a bamboo hat, Yun Chujio burst into laughter. "Yuan Ji, I told you to be careful of being struck by lightning, right? You become bald again, haven't you?" The reason was indeed very simple. When Wu Yun escaped and saw Yuan Ji, he was instantly enraged. Great! This lackey actually followed him again. He really wanted to be struck. Hence, he rewarded Yuan Ji with the remaining bolts of heavenly lightning. However, when Yuan Ji saw the curly hair on Yun Chujia's head, he felt a strange sense of balance in his heart. Compared to the curly hair on her head, he would rather be struck bald. Yun Chujio noticed Yuan Ji's gaze and secretly pursed her lips. What did she know? This was a fashion fireworks display. The two of them quickly returned to the imperial city. Even though it was already the second half of the night, the city gate guards still let the two of them in because Yuan Ji had the token in his hand. However, when the few guards saw Yun Chujia's curly hair, they looked at each other in dismay. What did this Miss Yun do this time? Why did she become curly hair? After Yun Chujio returned to her own courtyard, her body was covered in dust, so she began to bathe and change her clothes. Of course, in order to prevent the small silver snake from peeking at her, Yun Chujio locked the small silver snake in the big iron pot. However, Hei Xinjiu did not know that the big iron pot had left a crack for a certain someone. Under the struggle, a certain someone still peeked a few times. Yes, it was indeed bigger than glutinous rice balls. Chapter 5006. I want to eat glutinous rice balls. After Yun Chujio finished bathing and put on her clothes, she put away the big iron pot. Then, she saw two more bloodlines hanging on the nose of the small silver snake. Yun Chujio, pretty boy, what are you thinking about again? Are you planning to die of blood poisoning? Yun Chujio thought that a certain venerable had imagined something bad, so her nose was bleeding again. Even in her dreams, she would never have thought that the big iron pot not only had intelligence, but also knew how to suck up to her. The venerable one felt guilty and said casually, "No, nothing much. I just want to eat glutinous rice balls." As soon as he said that, the small silver snake instantly turned pale pink, and Hei Xinjia's face turned red. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became a little ambiguous. After a moment, Hei Xinjiu said fiercely, "Shameless." A certain someone, he was talking about the real glutinous rice ball. He wasn't referring to Xiao He who was showing off her sharp edges. However, he knew that the more he tried to cover up, the darker it would become, so he simply didn't say anything. Yun Chujio directly hid under the quilt. She gritted her teeth in her heart. This pretty boy was even more shameless after he lost his memory. Yun Chujio was tired after a whole day of torment and fell asleep very quickly. However, the silver snake was not sleepy at all. Its mind was in a mess. After struggling for a while, it finally crawled onto the bed and fell asleep with satisfaction after smelling the fragrance on the blanket. Yun Chujio slept until noon the next day. The silver snake returned to the table before she woke up. Therefore, when Yun Chujio opened her eyes, she saw the small silver snake cultivating with its eyes closed on the table. It was rare for Yun Chujio to have a conscience. She felt that letting the small silver snake sleep on the cold table was a little inhumane, so she decided to build a nest for him at night. Therefore, before going to bed that night, Hei Shinjo took out a bamboo basket and spread some soft cloth on it to put the small silver snake inside. The small silver snake's vertical pupils flashed, but it did not say anything, because he was going to sleep on the bed anyway. Of course, he did not want to be closer to the ugly girl, he just wanted dignity. Yes, it was for dignity. As an overlord, he naturally had to sleep on the bed. Therefore, for the next few nights, after Yun Shujo fell asleep, the small silver snake would sneak onto the bed, and then obediently crawl back to its nest before Yun Shujo woke up. Yun Shujo's silly cuties were naturally aware of this, but none of them told Yun Shujo the truth. The reason was very simple. This was the matter of the couple, so why would they get involved? On this day, Yun Shujo had just returned from the ancestral home when Lan Luofeng came over excitedly. "Little Jiu, I knew you would be safe. Here, this is the snack I brought back from my ancestral home. I'll give it to you." Yun Shujo saw the snack Lan Luofeng handed over and immediately smiled so much that she could not close her mouth. The two of them chatted casually. After chatting for a while, Lan Luofeng finally remembered the important matter and said, "Oh right, little Jiu, my mother wanted me to remind you not to participate in the divine relic trial." Yun Shujo was stunned. Divine relic trial? Lan Luofeng saw her blank face and explained, "The divine relic trial is held once every 30 years. The location is the divine relic land. It is said that it used to be the place where the gods lived. However, only cultivators below the peak of the spirit realm can enter. Since the divine relic land was discovered by the ancestors of the four families, only the four families can open the enchantment together. This has also become a competition between the four families." Yun Shujo raised her eyebrows. "According to what you said, participating in the God's Legacy trial will get you a lot of good things, and you might even get an inheritance. This is a once-in-lifetime opportunity. Why won't second aunt let me participate?" Lan Luofeng curled her lips. If it were in the past, everyone would be trying their best to get a spot. But today is different. The Mu family, the Zhuang family, and the Qi family will definitely attack the secret realm, so you must not participate. After Lan Luofeng finished speaking, she saw that Yun Shujo was in a daze and could not help but raise her voice. "Little Jiu, did you hear what I said?" Yun Shujo knocked on the stone table with her finger, indicating that Lan Luofeng should not speak for now. Lan Luofeng did not know what evil schemes she was up to, so she could only keep her mouth shut. At this moment, Yun Shujo was not thinking about the divine relic trial, but what Lan Luofeng said just now had answered one of her questions. A few days ago, when she killed Nanny Lu, it was obvious that Zhuang Shi and Lan Luoshan intended to keep the matter quiet, or rather, they wanted to play dirty. In the end, they went to Lan Dimeo the next day to complain. At that time, she was still thinking, why did this mother and daughter pair suddenly change their minds? Was there someone supporting them? Alpha D Alpha Eta Theta Nu Epsilon. Could it be that the mother and daughter of Zhuang Shi were related to the Zhuang family? Of course, this was only her guess. She would have to see what happened next. Yun Shujo thought of this and said to Lan Luofeng, "What you said makes sense. Indeed, this divine relic trial cannot be attended. I will not go." Lan Luofeng nodded. "That's good. Maybe the old ancestor won't let our people participate this time. After all, he knows that if we go this time, things will be bad." Yun Shujo didn't know why, but she had a bad premonition in her heart. That old fox wouldn't force her to participate, right? Rho Alpha D Alpha and Nu Omf. No matter what, even if she didn't go, he couldn't do anything to her. The next day, everyone from the Lan family was summoned to the ancestral residence. Everyone guessed that it should be about the divine relic trial. Could it be that the old ancestor had announced that the Lan family had given up on this trial? Very quickly, the old ancestor arrived at the square. He swept his gaze across everyone and said, "The divine relic trial is about to begin. I know that all of you are worried that you will be besieged by the other 3 families. However, the path of cultivation is a life and death struggle. There is no room for retreat. Therefore, our Lan family will not only participate in this trial, but we will also take the lead." When the Lan family members heard this, they immediately looked troubled. Take the lead? Forget it. It would be good enough if they could come back alive. The ancestor continued, "Every time, the candidates for the divine relic trial are selected through a competition. This time, because there is no time, we will directly refer to the ranking of the last family competition and obtain the qualification to enter the top 10. Since the first place of the last family competition was Yun Chujo, the captain of the Lan family trial this time is Yun Chujo." Yun Chujo, fuck. What's there to be afraid of? What's this old fox thinking? Just as Hei Shinjo was about to feign illness, the old ancestor gave her a warning glance. This fellow thought for a moment and didn't say anything. He planned to find the old fox to negotiate after the meeting ended. Lan Luocheng and the others looked at each other. They were naturally unwilling to participate in this divine relic trial. They were even more dissatisfied with Yun Chujo being the team leader. However, they did not dare to question the old ancestor. They were extremely dissatisfied in their hearts. The old ancestor swept his gaze across the crowd and said, "Since I have already appointed Yun Chujo as the team leader, the rest of you who are participating in the trial must unconditionally listen to her arrangements. Otherwise, she has the right to kill anyone who disobeys her orders on the spot." Once the old ancestor said this, Lan Luocheng and the others became even more dissatisfied. On what basis? Yes, Yun Shijia's spiritual power had suddenly soared recently, and she had already reached the 5th level of the extreme spiritual realm. However, their spiritual power had also increased, and they were not inferior to this Yun Chujo. On what basis did they have to listen to her? However, although they were dissatisfied, no one dared to make a sound. Yun Chujo felt that if gazes could kill, she would have already died a few times. The old ancestor did not continue to say anything. He just glanced at everyone and signaled for them to disperse. Yun Chujo immediately followed the old ancestor to the study room. "Old ancestor, I'm a waste. I won't waste such a precious spot. Let's give it to someone who needs it more," Hei Shinjo said with a snort. Forefather snorted coldly. "You dare to venture into the wilderness by yourself? What's a trifling divine relic trial?" Yun Chujo, before she could argue further, Forefather continued, "Not only will you go, but you will also have to shoulder the responsibility of being the team leader. You have to bring them back safely. And you have to get first place." Yun Shijia's mouth opened and closed. "Old ancestor, why don't you just slap me to death? What a joke. Such a group of trash, and they all had their own ulterior motives. She did not have the ability to bring them to first place." The Lan family's old ancestor smiled mysteriously. "If you can do it, Luo Chen will not appear in the Lan family for a year. Moreover, I will give you the qualifications to compete for the position of the young master of the Lan family." Rho Alpha D Alpha and Nu Data Theta Nu Epsilon Amayan Chujo thought about it and it made sense. To others, 10 against 30 was very dangerous. To her, it was not a big deal at all. Moreover, the fact that that piece of trash, Lan Luochen, could not appear was simply too much to her liking. Just thinking about that crazy person gave her a headache. Moreover, if she could obtain the qualifications to compete for the position of the young master of the Lan family, it would be much more convenient for her to do things in the future. Thus, this fellow said with a smile, "Old ancestor, look at what you said. I'm a member of the Lan family, so I naturally have to listen to your arrangements. As long as it's for our Lan family, little Jiu will go through fire and water without any hesitation." The corners of the old ancestor's eyes twitched. This troublemaker's skin was really thick. In that case, go back and prepare. Yun Shujo walked out of the old ancestor's study room and saw Lan Luofeng come up to her with a sad face. She said with a sobbing voice, "Little Jiu, what did the old ancestor say to you? Did he agree to you not going? What should I do? Last time, I was lucky enough to enter the top 10. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have won a single match." Yun Shujo patted her shoulder. "It's all right. I'll take care of you and guarantee your safety. Besides, you might even find some good stuff. Little Jiu, don't joke around. We're really doomed this time." Lan Luofeng felt that Yun Shujo was most likely crazy. Even if she had a belly full of bad ideas, she wouldn't have been able to deal with the combined forces of the Mu family, Qi family, and Zhuang family. This time, she was really going to die. Yun Shujo rolled her eyes and said, "All right, even if you're right, we're going to die. Is it useful for you to cry here? If you have this kind of kung fu, you might as well ask your mother for more life-saving items. For example, talismans, spirit tools, and the like." Hearing that, Lan Luofeng became even more worried. She glanced at Yun Shujo and said, "Little Jiu, don't tell me you don't know that not only is the land of God's relic forbidden from flying, but talismans cannot be used?" Yun Shujo, damn old fox, he didn't tell her that she couldn't use talismans. Was it too late to regret now? Who cares if he can use them or not, you have to go no matter what. Just accept your fate. He Xinjiu saw that Lan Luofeng was crying endlessly and said in a bad mood. Lan Luofeng also knew that there was no turning back. No one dared to disobey the old ancestor's words. Even if she didn't want to go, she had to go. Yun Shujo and Lan Luofeng had just left the ancestral residence when they saw Lan Luocheng and the others waiting for her with an unfriendly expression. "Yun Shujo, if you still have self-awareness, immediately tell the ancestor to resign from the position of captain. Otherwise, don't blame us for not being polite," Lan Luocheng said with a gloomy face. Lan Luomu and the others also glared at Yun Shujo. Even if her current spiritual power was not bad, how could she, a foreigner from a low-level continent, be above them? Yun Shujo snorted coldly. "Do you think I'm willing to bring a bunch of pigs to participate in the trial? If you have the guts, go and talk to the patriarch. If you don't, get lost." Lan Luocheng and the rest were almost angered to death. "Who are you calling pigs?" Lan Luocheng wanted to make a move immediately, but he saw Yun Shujo turn around and run into the ancestral residence. As she ran, she shouted, "All of you are bullying me. I will go and find the old ancestor to make justice for me. I will beat all of you to death." Rho alpha d alpha n nu eta theta nu epsilon This damn Yun Shujo relied on the old ancestor's favor and was practically going to heaven. They did not believe that the old ancestor would listen to her one-sided words and really punish them. However, a moment later, housekeeper Su followed the smug Yun Shujo out. "Young masters, the old ancestor has ordered that from now until the end of the trial, anyone who dares to disobey the orders of the young miss will be severely punished." Everyone was so angry that they almost vomited blood. What kind of bewitching potion did this troublemaker give the old ancestor? Why did the old ancestor favor this troublemaker so much? Yun Shujo crossed her shoulders, shook her feet, and said arrogantly, "Did you hear that? Now get out of my way. I'm going back home." Everyone was angry but didn't dare to say anything. They could only make way and watch He Xinjiu swagger away with Lan Luofeng. After walking for a distance, Lan Luofeng said worriedly, "Little Jiu, now that you've offended them, I'm afraid that they will harm you if you enter the land of God relic." Yun Shujo snorted, "Do you think that they will let me go even if I don't do this?" Lan Luofeng thought about it and agreed. Those people had always treated Yun Shujo as a thorn in their flesh. Even if she gave in, they might not let her go. Thinking about it, she was even more uncertain about the upcoming divine relic trial. Perhaps they were not killed by the Mu family in the end, but by their own people. When they reached the third room, Lan Luofeng went to find Jia Shi, while Yun Shujo returned to her own courtyard. As soon as they entered the room, the little silver snake asked, "Are you really going to participate in the divine relic trial? Actually, if you insist on not going, that old thing might not force you to go." Yun Shujo chuckled. "Are you showing concern for me?" The little silver snake said awkwardly, "This venerable self is worried about my safety. After all, if you enter the land of God relics, this venerable self will have to follow you in." Hearing his words, Yun Shuji's heart began to pound. The land of God relics could only allow people with extreme spirit cultivation to enter. She did not know if she could bring the pretty boy in. If she could not bring him in, it would be difficult to handle. The small silver snake seemed to have seen through her doubts and immediately snorted, "My cultivation is now damaged. I should be able to enter the land of God relic." Yun Shujo was still worried. She thought that if the gigolo could not enter, she would not go in. After all, nothing was more important than the safety of the gigolo. The little silver snake saw that she didn't speak and said, "You haven't answered my question. Why didn't you reject that old thing?" Yun Shujo sighed. "Although I insisted that the old fox wouldn't do anything to me, I'm still in the Lan family's territory. It's too easy for him to scheme against me. Moreover, the conditions he proposed were very tempting. It's not like you don't know that Lan Luochen is a psychopath. It's better not to meet him if possible." The small silver snake's vertical pupils flashed with a faint light. He had lost the memories related to Yun Shujo, so he didn't know about the entanglement between Lan Luochen and Yun Shujo. Previously, when he heard the Lan family's ancestor mention Lan Luochen, he had some doubts. Now that he heard that Yun Shujo was so annoyed with Lan Luochen, although he was slightly relieved, he still hated Lan Luochen. This was because he could tell from Yun Shuji's words that Lan Luochen had been pestering the ugly girl. Otherwise, the ugly girl would not have agreed to participate in the divine relic trial just because of this condition. Seeing that Di Baiming did not say anything, Yun Shujo thought that he had nothing more to ask, so she placed him on the table and then pondered over the next step. Alpha D Alpha, Eta Theta Nu Epsilon. I'm Captain Yun Shujo, 5th level of the Extreme Spirit Realm. Big Room, Lan Luocheng, 5th level of the Extreme Spirit Realm. Lan Luoyong, 4th level of the Extreme Spirit Realm. Lan Luoyen, 4th level of the Extreme Spirit Realm. Second Room, Lan Luamu, 5th level of the Extreme Spirit Realm. Lan Luaji, 4th level of the Extreme Spirit Realm. Lan Luoping, 4th level of the Extreme Spirit Realm. Third Room, Lan Luohan, 5th level of the Extreme Spirit Realm. Lan Luoshan, 4th level of the Extreme Spirit Realm. Lan Luofang, 3rd level of the Extreme Spiritual Realm. To be fair, these people's progress could be considered to be rapid. After all, compared to half a year ago, they had basically broken through one level, especially Lan Luoyen, who had broken through 2 levels. But even so, according to the information she got from Yuan Ji, in terms of strength, the other 3 families were much stronger than the Lan family, not to mention that the other 3 families would form an alliance. That old fox still wanted her to lead this group of idiots to the first place? That was really daring. However, the most important thing now was to think of a way to control these people, so that they would not turn against each other before they could do anything. Yun Shujo rolled her eyes and immediately had an idea. She smiled sinisterly. 2 days later, it was time to set off. The Lan family naturally could not let these juniors go alone, so they sent Elder Ning, Elder Tua, and Lan Dimeo to lead the team. They also brought hundreds of guards. To be honest, Lan Dimeo did not really want to go, because the situation was tense now. Who knew if the other 3 families would be so desperate that they would directly take action? However, they did not dare to disobey the old ancestors' orders, so they could only brace themselves and bring everyone to the trial site. Compared to everyone's worries, Hei Shinjo did not care at all. She ate, drank, and even went up to Elder Tua to show off. Although Elder Tua basically did not respond to Yun Shujo, This was enough to surprise everyone. After all, Elder Tua's status in the Lan family was very special, and his personality was quite strange. Even Lan Dimeo and the others did not buy it. They did not expect that he could actually tolerate Yun Chujio's clamor in front of him. Lan Luoshan looked at Yun Chujio jumping around, and her lowered eyes were filled with hatred. Yun Chujio, your jumping will soon come to an end. Your time of death has come. Although Lan Luocheng and the others did not like Yun Chujio in any way, they did not dare to say anything because of Elder Tua and the other two. Anyway, they had already made up their minds. Once they were inside, they would leave Yun Chujio and Lan Luofang, who were a burden, behind. As for the captain, they could go to hell. On this day, Elder Tua suddenly took out a porcelain bottle and distributed a pill to Lan Luocheng and the others. Eat it. It's good for you. Although the others didn't understand, they didn't dare to say anything. They all swallowed it. However, there was no reaction after swallowing it. Yun Chujio winked at Elder Tua. Elder Tua ignored her, but a faint smile appeared on his lips. On this day, the flying spirit tool arrived at the trial site. The people from the Mu, Qi, and Zhuang families had already arrived early. The people from the three families looked at the people from the Lan family with hostility. Mu Zian originally thought that Lan Luochen would also participate this time, so she could take the opportunity to have a good talk with him. Who would have thought that after scanning the crowd, she did not see Lan Luchen's figure? Mu Zian could not help but feel very disappointed. When her gaze swept past Yun Chujio, a killing intent instantly flashed. It was good that cousin Luo Chen did not come. She could just kill this bitch. Ro Alpha D Alpha and Nu Omotha, everyone had their own plans in their hearts. The elders of the four families still pretended to exchange pleasantries. However, their words carried a tinge of sarcasm. Brother Lan, the cultivation of the juniors participating in this trial does not seem to be very high. The highest is only at the 5th level of the extreme spiritual realm? Could it be that the juniors with high cultivation did not come? Mu Kelo of the Mu family said with a fake smile. Qi Anqing of the Qi family said with a strange tone, Brother Mu, you can't say that. Doesn't the Lan family still have Lan Luochen? Could it be that the ancestor of the Lan family is afraid of danger and has hidden himself? The Lan family isn't like our three families, which have many talents. It's not easy for them to have an outstanding one, so they naturally have to be careful. Zhuang Ruhai of the Zhuang family also said with a bit of ridicule. Lan Dimeo's expression became even more gloomy. He had just roughly glanced at the other three families. They were indeed stronger than the Lan family. This time, the Lan family would probably suffer heavy losses. None of these children would be able to come out alive. He really did not understand why the ancestor of the Lan family insisted on participating in this trial. Wasn't this looking for trouble for himself? Could it be that the ancestor really felt that Yun Chujio, that troublemaker, had the ability to turn the tide? Although that troublemaker had a belly full of bad water and had some ability, with the disparity in strength, could she do it? Alpha D Alpha Eta Theta Nu Epsilon. If the Lan family suffered a heavy blow this time, it would definitely be of great benefit to their next plan. Sooner or later, the Lan family would be divided among them. Yun Chujio didn't pay attention to their conversation. What she was worried about now was whether the little silver snake could enter the land of God relics. Chapter 50:11, Wang Zhu. Since it was not yet time for the secret realm to open, everyone could only wait on the spot and gather in twos and threes to chat. At this moment, Mu Zian gracefully walked over. Lan Luoyen had the best relationship with her, so she went up to greet her with some flattery. Lan Luoyen wanted to curry favor with Mu Zian. This way, if there was a conflict inside, Mu Zian could also save her life. Mu Zian smiled and chatted with her for a while. Then, she changed the topic. I wonder who is the leader of your Lan family this time? Lan Luoyen curled her lips and said, Sister Zian, I'm not afraid of you making fun of me. Our leader this time is Yun Chuzhou. Mu Zian was stunned. She never thought that the Lan family would actually let Yun Chuzhou be the leader. At this moment, she noticed that Yun Chuzhou's spiritual power had actually soared to the 5th level of the extreme spiritual realm. She had actually broken through to the 5th level in such a short time. How did she do it? Mu Zian could not help but feel a little jealous and fearful. Although she had just broken through to the 7th level of the extreme spiritual realm a few days ago, if she allowed this bitch to continue jumping around, perhaps her spiritual power would surpass hers. At that time, wouldn't there be even less ways to deal with her? This time, she had to kill her. Fortunately, the 3 families had already reached an agreement. After entering, they would find an opportunity to kill the people of the Lan family. Yun Chuzhou, you're dead meat. Mu Zian came back to her senses and said with a gentle smile, so your captain is Yun Chuzhou. In that case, I wish your Lan family the best. Lan Luoyen pursed her lips and wanted to say something. However, if she said something disheartening at this time, she might be blamed by others. Therefore, she swallowed what she wanted to say. However, from the bottom of her heart, she felt that the Lan family was doomed this time. Putting everything else aside, their team leader would not be able to compete with the other 3 families. The Mu family's team leader was Mu Zian, 7th level of the extreme spirit realm. The Zhuang family's team leader was Zhuang Shichen, 7th level of the extreme spirit realm. The Qi family's team leader was Qi Tianhui, 7th level of the extreme spirit realm. No matter which one of them was stronger than Yun Chuzhou, who was at the 5th level of the extreme spirit realm, not to mention that the other team members also had higher spiritual powers than the Lan family. While the 2 of them were chatting, Lan Dimeo and the other 3 called everyone to gather and read out some things to take note of. First, the divine relic trial lasted for 1 month. Flying was forbidden inside, and the use of talisman seals was forbidden. Second, the ranking was based on the number of false pearls in the divine relic land. It was rumored that the divine relic land was transformed from the last city that the god had lived in. For some unknown reason, there were many things that looked like demonic beasts inside, so everyone named them false pearls. These paranoia beasts had brutal temperaments, strange appearances, and different innate abilities. However, there was a kind of shiny bead inside their bodies, which they called the paranoia bead. This kind of paranoia bead had the effect of calming the qi and concentrating the mind. Wearing it for a long time could eliminate the inner demons, so it was very precious. As for the 3rd rule, it was basically negligible. Because the main idea of the 3rd rule was that friendship was first, and the competition was second, so no one should kill each other. After the rules were announced, it was time to open the enchantment. Lan Dimeo and the other 3 took out their jade tokens. After forming a seal, a transparent enchantment appeared in front of everyone. Everyone entered the enchantment one by one. Yun Chuzhou was worried about whether the small silver snake could enter, so she was the last one. This guy first put the sleeve bag containing the small silver snake into the enchantment. Seeing that there was nothing unusual, he walked into the enchantment. When Yun Chuzhou was teleported in, she found that the 9 members of the Lan family were surrounded by the other 3 families. They actually wanted to make a move now. The faces of the members of the Lan family were full of nervousness and fear. They had never thought that the other 3 families would actually choose to make a move as soon as they entered the mystic realm. 10 versus 30, they had no chance of winning at all. Yun Chuzhou saw the situation and laughed lightly. What? You want to attack now? Fine, let's do it. Lan Luoyen and the others were furious. This Yun Chuzhou was not in her right mind, right? She actually urged them to attack. Alpha D Alpha Eta Theta Nu Epsilon. Yun Chuzhou sneered and said, the people of the Lan family, listen to this captain. In a while, whichever family of the 3 families attacks first, we will focus on attacking that family's people. If we can't recover, they can forget about it. The expressions of Mu Zian, Zhuang Shichen, and Qi Tianhui changed slightly. They were not stupid, so they naturally understood the hidden meaning in Yunchuji's words. Whichever family made the first move, the Lan family would fight with whichever family. The family that made the first move would suffer more serious casualties compared to the other two families. In this way, not only would the results of the trial be affected, but the divine relic land was very dangerous. Losing one person would increase the danger. Therefore, for the time being, none of the three families wanted to make the first move. Seeing this, Yun Chujio said faintly, "If I were you, I would wait until the trial is about to end before making a move. After all, in a sense, we are all in the same boat now. The wild beasts in the divine relic land are extremely ferocious. Moreover, it is said that there are many strange and terrifying things. Instead of wasting your spiritual power on us, why don't you think about how to keep your lives?" Mu Zian and the other two looked at each other again. For a moment, they were hesitant. Rho Alpha D Alpha and Nu Omian Shujo waved her claws at Lan Luo Yen and the others. "What are you all standing there for? Follow me to the front to take a look." Although Lan Luo Yen and the others were dissatisfied with Yun Shujo and looked down on her, they were extremely obedient at this moment and followed behind Yun Shujo. Mu Zian clenched her fists but ultimately did not give the order to attack. That bitch Yun Shujo was right. The most important thing now was to protect themselves. As for the Lan family, they could wait until the end of the trial to deal with them. Moreover, the Zhuang family and Qi family might not be that trustworthy. If their Mu family suffered a heavy blow, the other two families might take advantage of it. Zhuang Shichen and Qi Tianhui obviously thought the same, so they did not give the order to attack. Therefore, Yun Shujo swaggered out of the encirclement with the Lan family members. The Lan family members wiped the cold sweat from their foreheads. Some of them had a slightly better impression of Yun Shujo. After all, if it were not for her words, there would be a bloody battle. Seeing that the other three families had no intention to kill them, Lan Luoyen snorted and said, "Yun Shujo, don't think that your words worked. I don't think the Mu family intended to do anything. They were just trying to scare us." Lan Luoshan said gently, "Luoyen, it's inappropriate for you to say that. Although the three families are trying to scare us, little sister Jio's words also played a role." Yun Shujo turned around and looked at the two of them. "You can either shut up or let me cut off your tongues. It's your choice." Lan Luoyen immediately shouted in exasperation, "Yun Shujo, do you really think you're so great? Let me tell you, there's no ancestor to support you in this divine relic land. If you don't know your place, the one who will die will be you." Before Yun Shujo could speak, Lan Luomu spoke unhappily, "Shut up. Can't you see that the three families have already caught up? If there's another internal conflict, none of us will survive." Yun Shujo shrugged her shoulders and didn't say anything. This Lan Luomu wasn't stupid to the extreme. Lan Luoyen was startled by Lan Luma's vicious gaze and didn't dare to speak anymore. Lan Lushan's expression did not change, as if nothing had happened. The divine relic land was actually a grand city. According to the people who had entered before, the grandeur of the city was beyond their imagination. Yun Shujo and the rest were only outside the city. It would take them at least half a day to enter the city. Mu Zian and the others had already caught up, but they had no intention of attacking. It was obvious that they had reached a consensus that they would not attack the Lan family for the time being. Even so, the members of the Lan family were on their guard. Who knew if they would attack them? Alpha D Alpha Eta Theta Nu Epsilon M crisis was temporarily resolved, so Yun Shujo had the intention to look around. The surroundings were very barren. There were only some jagged rocks on the ground, and there was not even a single wild grass. It gave people a desolate and dilapidated feeling. Fortunately, according to the records, the distance between the barrier and the city was not dangerous, so everyone was not so nervous. Clouds and mist lingered in the distance, so everyone did not see the so-called magnificent city. However, half a day later, when the clouds and mist dispersed, everyone saw the city in the distance, and they were all dumbfounded. Rho Alpha D Alpha and knew, oh my god. The city in front of them had completely exceeded their knowledge, because this city was not only so big that they could not see the end of it, but it actually spiraled up layer by layer, as if it was soaring into the sky. Oh my god, this was too shocking. At this moment, Zhuang Shichen said with some doubt, I heard from the elders in my family that although this divine relic land was originally spiraling up, it was said that when they came before, there were only 3 layers. But I think there should be at least 18 layers now. What's going on? Could it be that something has happened? His words caused a resonance. After all, this divine relic land opened once every 30 years, and many people had entered before. Qi Tianhui smiled and said, Brother Zhuang, you're worrying too much. The more layers there are in the city, the more treasures and inheritances we can obtain. This is a great thing. Zhuang Shichen thought about it and it made sense. Moreover, they had no other choice but to enter the city. This was because although the barrier at the entrance was outside the city, the barrier at the exit was inside the city after a month. Even if there was something wrong, they had to enter the city. Everyone discussed as they continued on their journey. Finally, they reached the outside of the city. The land of divine relics was what outsiders called it. This city had an extremely majestic name, the Supreme City. These 4 words were written in ancient characters. Although the ancient characters had basically been lost, the frequency of these 4 words was relatively high, so everyone could still recognize them. Yun Chujiu looked at the 4 words and thought that the god who originally lived here had a sense of superiority. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come up with such a name. However, things were hard to predict. Even if it used to be very glorious, it had now become the past. Everyone praised and discussed for a while, and then their gazes fell on the huge city gate. At a glance, everyone couldn't help but exclaim, Heavens! Heavens! This city gate is actually made of 10,000-year-old dark steel. Everyone's eyes revealed greed and shock. Even the palm-sized 10,000-year-old dark steel was an existence that people would go crazy for outside, but it was actually only used to make a city gate here? It was simply a reckless waste of heaven's gift. If they could keep this 10,000-year-old dark steel, heavens, it would be an earth-shattering wealth. However, everyone could only think about it. After all, the 10,000-year-old dark steel was extremely sturdy and could not be cut. Moreover, the weight of the 10,000-year-old dark steel was extremely shocking. They had no way of taking this city gate away. He Xinjiu touched her chin. This was really a good thing. If the little flame was powerful in the future, she could forge the 2 city gates into many puppets. Just thinking about it would be beautiful. Of course, this fellow was only thinking about it. She had no way of keeping the 2 city gates. At this moment, the 2 city gates were closed. Everyone looked at each other. How could they enter? At this moment, the city gates slowly opened. There seemed to be an ethereal celestial music coming from inside. Everyone could not help but have a misconception. It was as if they were not here for the trial but had already cultivated and entered the immortal realm. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and then they excitedly entered the Supreme City. Yun Chujiu stayed at the back and slowly walked into the Supreme City. The moment she entered, she heard everyone's exclamations. Previously, they had only seen the part that was as tall as the clouds. Now that they were inside, they were even more shocked. They were currently on an extremely wide street. The ground was paved with huge bluestones, and there were exquisite engravings on the bluestones. Rho Alpha D Alpha and Nu looking into the distance, they saw exquisite pavilions on both sides of the street. They did not know whether they were residences or shops. Although it was desolate outside the city, it was as if time had stopped inside the Supreme City. The ground was as clean as new, and the pavilions did not have the slightest bit of decadence. If they did not know that this was only a divine relic, they might really think that there were gods living here. After everyone was shocked, they could not wait to rush forward. There might be treasures or inheritances in each of the pavilions. Naturally, the earlier they entered, the better. Lan Luoyen and the others also had greedy looks on their faces. Just as they were about to rush forward, they heard Yun Shujiu faintly say, "If you are not afraid of death, then chase after them. If you listen to me, then obediently stay here and watch the show." Alpha D Alpha Eta Theta Nu Epsilon Theta M. I don't know if there are any powerful wild beasts, but if you and the other 3 families fight for the treasures, they won't have so many concerns and will directly attack. Since I've said so much, it's up to you. Anyway, I'm not going in, Yun Shujiu said indifferently. Lan Luoyen immediately stopped her footsteps when she heard that, obviously afraid. Lan Luofeng naturally followed Yun Shujiu's lead. She asked, "Little Jiu, what you said makes sense. But if we don't go in, where are we going?" The corners of Yun Shujiu's mouth curled up. "Well, wait here. It's also good to let them explore the way." Chapter 50:16 The night scene. Lan Luomu and the others looked at each other. Their original plan was to get rid of Yun Shujiu and Lan Luofeng once they entered the city. However, after what happened earlier, they were a little hesitant, so they didn't say anything and tacitly agreed with Yun Shujiu's decision. Therefore, the Lan family members waited near the city gate, ready to see what the other 3 families were going through. An hour later, people came out from the pavilions by the side of the street one after another, all of them beaming with joy. "Ha ha ha. I actually got a low-grade immortal artifact. Although it's not a high-grade one, it's already very good to have such a harvest as soon as I entered. Congratulations, congratulations. I also found a heaven-grade herb that's already extinct outside. The land of God relics really lives up to its reputation. Yes, our harvest this time will definitely be very rich. No wonder the family members are all fighting to participate in this trial." Almost everyone who came out of the trial had gained something, and they were all beaming with joy. Lan Luoyen glared at Yun Shujiu when she saw this. "Look, it's all your fault. If it weren't for you stopping us, we would all be rich." Yun Shujiu glanced at her. "I'm not tying your legs. If you want to go, then go. You." Lan Luoyen was almost beaten to death. She wanted to go, but she was afraid of being attacked by the other 3 families. Yun Shujiu stretched and said faintly, "Think about it. You want to die, or you want to get rich? Anyway, I want to die. As for those treasures, I'm not greedy, and I won't take the risk to snatch them." Everyone from the Lan family had different expressions, but no one said anything else. The people from the other 3 families went along the street to plunder the pavilions one by one, and they all gained a lot. When they saw that the Lan family didn't dare to fight with them, they all looked proud. As time passed, the other 3 families went further and further away, and they were almost out of the sight of the people from the Lan family. At this time, the sky gradually darkened. Lan Luoyen anxiously circled a few times and said, "Yun Shujiu, what do you mean? Don't tell me we have to wait at the city gate all the time? Do you know that the enchantment outside might be in those palaces hovering above? If we can't find the exact location, we can only be trapped here. It's the same as before. If you want to leave, no one will stop you." Lan Luoyen was so angry that she was twitching. She wanted to leave, but she didn't dare to leave alone. Yun Shujiu took out a meat bun and started to eat it. Of course, she didn't forget to put one in her sleeve pocket to prevent a certain person from starving. Everyone was also hungry, but most of them ate fasting pills, so it was more convenient for them to train outside. Yun Shujiu took out a talisman and a formation plate to try it out, and sure enough, there was no effect at all. She tried to release the puppet again, but it did not succeed. This fellow calculated in her heart. Although this supreme city looked very high and mighty, she would not be naive enough to think that this was a good place to pick up scraps. She did not ignore what Zhuang Shichen had said earlier. Previously, there were only 3 floors in those spiraling places, but now there were so many more floors. It might not be a good thing. At this moment, Lan Luoyen and the others cried out in surprise. As it turned out, as night fell, the entire Supreme City was resplendent. Every building actually emitted a lustrous glow. It was very beautiful and magnificent. Chapter 50:17 was also idle. Lan Luofang, who was beside Yun Shujiu, praised, "Oh my God, this is too beautiful." As expected of the Supreme City, the night here is even more beautiful than the day. Yun Shujiu did not think much of this. After all, she had seen the night scene of the modern city, so this was nothing. However, for Lan Luofang and the others, they were really shocked. Yun Shujiu told them about the arrangements for the night shift, but no one had any objections. At first, everyone was worried about what would happen at night, but after a night, everything went as usual, and their originally tense hearts relaxed a little. After daybreak, Lan Luoyen was making a racket and rushing on her way. They were here for the trial, not to meditate. She didn't want to stay at the city gate all the time. Since nothing happened last night, everyone's thoughts became active. Hence, they all agreed. Lan Luoshan saw that Yun Shujiu did not express her stance. She said gently, "Little sister Jiu, if you are afraid, you can wait for us here. We will come and look for you after we find the exit enchantment." Yun Shujiu curled her lips. "All right. If you insist on going, I will wait for you here." Lan Lushan's eyes flashed with viciousness when she heard this. Who would come back to look for her? She would just wait here to die. With Lan Luoyen and Lan Luoshan taking the lead, most of the people immediately got up and prepared to leave. Only Lan Luofang, Lan Luomu, and Lan Luofang did not move. Lan Luofang was He Xinjia's little follower, so she naturally would not leave. Lan Luomu had suffered a few losses from Yun Shujiu. He felt that since Yun Shujiu did not leave, she must have her own plans, so after weighing the pros and cons, he decided to stay. As for Lan Luozi's thoughts, Yun Shujiu was an iron rooster who did not give out a single cent. She was more greedy than anyone else. However, she did not pick up any scraps. This meant that there must be something wrong. Lan Luoyen and the rest were focused on picking up scraps. Hence, they tried to persuade them. When they saw that Lan Luomu and Lan Luoji had no intention of leaving, they decided to ignore the two of them and quickly rushed forward. Although they didn't dare to fight with the Mu family, they might find something unexpected if they searched through the pavilions that they had already looted. Yun Shujiu looked at Lan Luomu and Lan Luoji and smiled. "Come, we have nothing to do. Let's play cards." Lan Luomu, Lan Luoji, how dare you? You still have the mood to play cards at this time? However, in the end, they could not resist Yun Shujiu's urging and the 4 of them began to play cards. The little silver snake in Yun Shujiu's sleeve pocket was not in a good mood at this moment. This was because ever since he left the Lan family, he had never had the chance to speak to Yun Shujiu in order to avoid being discovered. Now that he heard her and Lan Luomu chatting and laughing, his heart felt sour. Moreover, ever since he entered the Supreme City, he had inexplicably disliked this place. A certain honored warrior was in a bad mood and started to fiddle around in his sleeve pocket in an attempt to attract He Xinjia's attention. However, He Xinjiu was having fun and only poked his head with her finger, ignoring him. A certain honored warrior felt even more depressed, but there was nothing he could do. He could only sulk alone in his sleeve pocket. Lan Luoyen and the others originally thought that the Mu family had already ransacked the pavilions and that they would not be able to find anything valuable. However, they did not expect that they would actually reap such a bountiful harvest. Everyone's faces were filled with joy. It seemed that opportunities were not something that could be snatched away. Chapter 50:18 Wild Beasts. At this moment, Mu Zian and the others had already turned onto another street. The pavilions on both sides of this street were more exquisite than before, and their harvest was also more bountiful. Everyone was overjoyed. It seemed that their luck was really good. Not only did they not encounter the wild beasts, but they also obtained so many treasures. Soon, another day passed, and night fell once again. Mu Zian and the others were still somewhat vigilant, so they did not continue to plunder at night. Instead, they camped on the streets. The night gradually deepened, and everyone began to feel drowsy. This was when the people in charge of keeping watch were shocked to discover that the bright light had disappeared, and the entire supreme city had fallen into darkness. Immediately, they felt a little panicked and hurriedly woke everyone up. Everyone also felt that something was wrong. They all took out their illuminating items and stared at their surroundings vigilantly. Hee hee hee, hee hee hee. Suddenly, the crisp laughter of a woman could be heard from their surroundings. However, this laughter was especially terrifying in the dark night. Everyone knew that there were no humans in the divine relic land. Why would there be the laughter of a woman? Just as everyone was panicking, the pavilion closest to them lit up, and a beautiful young lady walked out. The young lady's smile was very charming and cute, and some of the men in the group could not help but look a little infatuated. The young lady said softly, "Everyone, since we are already at the entrance of our Jia residence, why don't you come in and have a seat? Why do you have to sleep outside?" A few men could not help but take a few steps forward. At this moment, Zhuang Shichen shouted sternly, "Be careful. There's no one here. There must be something fishy about this girl." The few men were startled by Zhuang Shichen's shout and immediately retreated in fear. That's right, there shouldn't be any living people here. This young girl was definitely not human. The young lady stomped her feet delicately. This young master's words hurt my heart too much. I invited all of you to be my guests out of goodwill, yet you guys didn't appreciate it. Since that's the case, then I can only use force. After saying that, the young lady walked towards the crowd. Everyone was very scared and involuntarily retreated. However, they never expected that an identical young lady would appear behind them. She also walked towards them delicately. Immediately, everyone released their spiritual beasts and attacked the two young ladies. However, the two young ladies mysteriously disappeared. Everyone became more and more fearful. Sometimes, powerful enemies that they could see were not scary. What made people fearful was the enemies that were hidden. At this moment, there was a strange laughter coming from the surroundings. The courtyard that the girl had invited them into had turned into a species that they had never seen before. Everyone looked at that thing in fear. It was very huge, almost the size of a pavilion. Its body looked like a huge toad. Its body was covered in a foul-smelling mucus. It had two heads and both looked like the girl from before, but they were magnified several times. A thought suddenly flashed through everyone's mind. A wild beast. This was the legendary wild beast. One of the heads of the wild beast said in a hoarse voice, "Sister, it's been a long time since we've eaten fresh human meat. We can have a full meal today." The other head said softly, "Sister, it's still the same old rules. The man belongs to me, and the woman belongs to you." Chapter 50-19 Wang Zhu. When Mu Zian and the others heard that this beast could not only speak human language, but also seemed to have two souls, they could not help but feel even more terrified. At this point, everyone had no other choice. They all transformed into spirit beasts and fought with this toad beast. The toad beast's attack method was the mucus on its body. One of the Mu family disciples was accidentally sprayed by the mucus on his body and instantly bled to death from all 7 orifices. The head with the soft voice immediately stuck out its tongue with barbs and sucked the corpse of the disciple into its mouth. Seeing this, everyone was scared and nauseated. They could only raise their spiritual energy shields to prevent themselves from being hit by the mucus. Although the toad beast was terrifying, it was fortunate that they had many people. After more than an hour, they finally killed the toad beast. The moment the toad-like beast died, its huge body turned into nothingness, leaving only a shiny pearl on the ground. Mu Zian immediately took a step forward and picked up the pearl. She smiled at Zhuang Shichen and Qi Tianhui and said, "The two of you don't have to worry too much. Since our three families are in an alliance, the pearl will naturally be divided equally. Next time, the two of you can take the pearl." Zhuang Shichen and Qi Tianhui did not say anything after hearing this. After all, a disciple of the Mu family had died this time, so it was only right for the Mu family to get a Wang Zhu first. The Wang Zhu is even more ferocious than we thought. Fortunately, the three of us have formed an alliance. Otherwise, it would have been a disaster. However, according to our Zhuang family's elder, only a Wang Zhu with 3 levels of levitation would have such strength. Why would there be such a powerful Wang Zhu here? If the beasts here were so terrifying, wouldn't the floating palaces be even more terrifying? If the enchantment outside is set up in the floating palace on the highest floor, I'm afraid we won't be able to get out, Zhuang Shichen said in a low voice. When everyone heard this, they immediately revealed terrified expressions. That's right. This was only the outer street, but there was already such a terrifying beast here. Would they still be able to survive? Qi Tianhui cleared his throat. Brother Zhuang, you don't have to be so pessimistic. Maybe the beast that we killed earlier ran out from the levitation layer. As long as we work together, we will definitely be able to leave this place safely. Mu Zian also echoed, that's right, everyone doesn't have to worry too much. Maybe this is just an accident. When everyone heard this, they finally calmed down slightly. However, as the sky gradually brightened, they could no longer maintain their composure. At this moment, a disciple cried out in horror, what's going on? Everyone looked at him and saw that he was holding a rock in his left hand and a withered branch in his right hand. How? How did my immortal sword and heaven-ranked Dracena turn into a rock and a withered branch? The disciple asked in disbelief. The others subconsciously checked their storage rings and found that the treasures they had found in excitement 2 days ago had also turned into rocks and withered branches. Some of them were even withered bones. At this time, He Xinjiu was still sleeping soundly at the city gate, while Lan Luoyan and the others were sitting at the side with ugly expressions. Last night, when they saw the mountain-like wild beast in the distance, they were so scared that their souls almost disappeared. They even ran back, rolling and crawling. Now, they tragically discovered that the treasures they had picked up were all a pile of junk, and they almost died of anger. They could imagine that when the troublemaker woke up, he would be sneering at them. Chapter 50-20, The Pill Given by Elder Tuo. When the sun rose high into the sky, Yun Shujiu finally opened her eyes lazily. She sized up Lan Luoyan and the others and asked suspiciously, Didn't you guys go to make a fortune? Why are you back? Lan Luoyan and the others' expressions became even more unsightly. Lan Luoyan said snappily, Are you blind? Didn't you see the appearance of a wild beast last night? Yun Shujiu narrowed her eyes. The way she looked at Lan Luoyan made Lan Luoyan shudder. Are you going to slap yourself, or do you want me to do it? Yun Shujiu said coldly. Lan Luoyan said fiercely, Yun Shujiu, you dare? This is not the imperial city, slap. Before she could finish her words, she received a slap from Yun Shujiu. Her entire left face was swollen. Lan Luoyan covered her face and was about to curse when she heard Yun Shujiu say coldly, If you keep talking, I'll cut off your tongue. If you don't believe me, you can try. Lan Luoshan quickly pulled Lan Luoyan behind her and said gently, Luoyan, don't say too much. Little sister Jiu is the team leader, and the old ancestor said not to disobey her orders. How can you go against her? As soon as Lan Luoshan finished her words, Yun Shujiu said coldly, Lan Luoshan, don't embarrass yourself in front of me with your white lotus tricks. You said these words to persuade Lan Luoyan, but in fact, you are provoking everyone to be dissatisfied with me. You better put away your shameful thoughts, or I don't mind killing you. Lan Lushan's face froze. She never thought that Yun Shujo would not only see through her thoughts, but also say it out loud and threaten her. Seeing this, Lan Luohan said coldly, Yun Shujo, do you really think that we are afraid of you? Apologize to my sister, or I will kill you. The corner of Yun Shujia's mouth curled up. Kill me? If you are not afraid of death, feel free to do it. Lan Luohan could hear the hidden meaning in her words. What do you mean by this? Yun Shujo laughed lightly. It's not that interesting. You all swallowed the pill that Elder Tua gave you, right? What kind of pill do you think it is? Everyone's expression changed drastically. Lan Luoyen cried out in shock, You mean, that pill is poison? Yun Shujo shrugged her shoulders. I didn't say anything. Anyway, if anything happens to me, none of you will survive. Immediately, they all sat down to inspect their bodies. Oh no, the moment I used my spiritual power, I felt a faint pain in my dantian. Lan Luoyen said with a sobbing voice. That's right. I also feel that something is wrong with my dantian, Lan Luoji echoed. When the two of them said that, the others also became terrified. They also felt that the situation in their dantian was not right. Could it be that the pills Elder Tua gave them were really poisonous pills? Lan Luoyen suddenly exclaimed, no wonder Elder Tua didn't give Yun Shujo the pills when he distributed them. They were well connected. Everyone recalled the situation at that time. It was true that Elder Tua didn't distribute the pills to Yun Shujo. Could it be that the old ancestor was afraid that they wouldn't listen to Yun Shujia's orders, so he ordered Elder Tua to poison them? Was the old ancestor muddle-headed? They were the descendants of the Lan family, yet they couldn't compare to Yun Shujo, a person with another surname? Chapter 50-21. Please address me as Captain. Yun Shujo looked at everyone's frightened or angry expressions and said coldly, I am the captain, so you must obey my orders unconditionally. If anyone dares to speak rudely to me or play any tricks, don't blame me for being impolite. Besides, you should all know that I value my life the most, so all I want is to leave this place safely. As long as you all listen to me, I promise to bring you all out of here safely. However, if some idiot makes his own decision, I won't be so kind as to save him. Do you all understand? As soon as Yun Shujo finished her words, only Lan Luofang said, I understand. The others didn't say anything. It was obvious that they were very dissatisfied with Yun Shujo. Yun Shujo walked to Lan Luoyen with a big kitchen knife and asked, Do you understand? Lan Luoyen took 2 steps back and gritted her teeth, I understand. Yun Shujo walked to Lan Luoshan and smiled, Sister Luoshan, you have always been the most righteous. Do you understand? Lan Luoshan clenched her hands under her sleeves and said stiffly, I understand. Yun Shujo then walked to Lan Luoji. Everyone was either afraid of the kitchen knife in Yun Shujia's hand or worried about the poison Elder Tua had given them. Under Yun Shujia's interrogation, they all gave a positive answer. Yun Shujo nodded with satisfaction. Very good. Since you all have full confidence in me, then let's go now. Lan Luoyen saw that Yun Shujo actually wanted to enter the street ahead and said, Yun Shujo, the wild beast yesterday was so terrifying, yet you still brought us in? Yun Shujo glanced at her. If we don't go in, how are we going to find the enchantment? Also, please call me Captain, thank you. Lan Luoyen's nose almost went crooked from anger. If you have the ability to say thank you, don't point at that broken kitchen knife. Everyone also knew that they could only reach the floating layer above through the crisscrossing streets below, so they could only brace themselves and follow Yun Shujo into the streets. Yun Shujo walked as she looked at the ruins around her. From the exquisite decorations on it, one could see that this place used to be prosperous, but now it had become dilapidated. She did not know how the scene that everyone had seen before was formed, but she had a brain. This place opened once every 30 years. Most of the good things had already been plundered by others. It was obviously against common sense that everyone could find the good things so easily. Yun Shujo randomly picked a ruin and walked in. She took out a wooden stick from her storage ring and started rummaging through the ruins. Lan Luoyen pursed her lips and thought to herself, did this troublemaker think that she would find a treasure in this ruin? Dream on. However, she had learned her lesson. Although she thought so, she didn't dare to say it out loud. Lan Luohan and Lan Luoshan stood at the back of the team. The siblings exchanged a look and looked at Yun Shujo with vicious eyes. Yun Shujo searched for a while but didn't find anything. Lan Luoyen pouted. She said that this troublemaker couldn't find anything. Then, Yun Shujo picked a ruin every now and then and went in to search, but found nothing. However, what everyone didn't expect was that the other three families actually returned and looked at them with hostility. Chapter 50-22, Then go ahead and kill him, Chi Tianhui said with a fake smile. It's better for the four families to advance and retreat together, so your Lan family should also join us. The faces of the Lan family members immediately changed. They were not fools, so they naturally understood the meaning behind Chi Tianhui's words. Was he planning to let them take the lead and send themselves to their deaths? However, there was a huge difference in strength between the two sides, so there was no room for them to refuse. Yun Shujo, on the other hand, looked relaxed and said with a smile, sure, it's good to have more people to work with. Our Lan family can't wait for that. Hearing that, Chi Tianhui pursed his lips. Before coming here, the Chi family's ancestor had told him to pay attention to Yun Shujo. Now that he looked at her, not only was her spiritual power inferior to his, but her mind was also very simple. She was not worth mentioning at all. Previously, when Yun Shujo entered the wilderness, although the Lan family's ancestor knew about it, the other three families did not pay attention to the wilderness, so they did not know much about it. Therefore, although they noticed Yun Shujo, they did not take it too seriously. Mu Zian saw that Yun Shujo was full of promises, so she made up her mind. It was not too late to make use of her to make a trip to find the enchantment and then kill her. Of course, this bitch might be killed by the beast halfway. Zhuang Shichen had other thoughts. Previously, the Lan family had been watching at the city gate. Yun Shujo must have given the order. From the looks of it, Yun Shujo was definitely not a simple-minded person. Therefore, he paid more attention to Yun Shujo. At this time, it was almost afternoon. Everyone no longer had the mood to search for treasures. They only wanted to get to the levitation layer through these streets. However, Yun Shujo was going to the ruins by the roadside every now and then. Chi Tianhui said unhappily, Yun Shujo, if you delay any longer, don't blame us for being rude. Yun Shujo shrugged indifferently. What? We are all willing to be your scapegoats. Is it bothering you that I am going to drag the ruins? You. Chi Tianhui initially thought that Yun Shujo did not know their intentions, but now that she had made it clear, he did not know how to respond. Mu Zian, who was at the side, said, Captain Yun, what Captain Chi means is that this place is very dangerous. We should hurry to the levitation layer. The corners of Yun Shujia's lips curled up. Hurry up and die. Chi Tianhui couldn't take it anymore and said angrily, Yun Shujo, don't be so shameless. Your Lan family is like a turtle in a jar. It's already very kind of you not to kill you. Hurry up, or it'll kill you. Yun Shujo glanced at him. Kill us? Then you should kill us. The two of them pulled him to the side and said in a low voice, Don't let your emotions get the best of you. We still need the Lan family to scout the way for us. It won't be too late to kill them after we find the enchantment. Chi Tianhui gritted his teeth and said, But that bitch has been stalling for time. Are we just going to let her be so arrogant? Zhuang Shichen looked at the sky and said, It's going to be dark soon. Even if she doesn't waste time, we should set up camp. Danger lurked everywhere, especially after what happened yesterday. Everyone dared not take any action at night. Hearing that, Chi Tianhui snorted and said, "All right, then let that bitch go for now. If she still wastes time tomorrow, it'll show her some strength no matter what." Chapter 50-23 felt that this place was somewhat familiar after Mu Zian and the other two finished their discussion. They began to arrange for everyone to be stationed. Yun Shuzhou continued to rummage through the surrounding ruins. Lan Luofang was really curious, so she went over. "Little Zhou, what are you looking for? Do you need me to help you find it?" Yun Shuzhou shook her head. "I'm just bored and randomly rummaging around. You don't have to care about me. Go and rest well. Who knows, there might be another beast attacking at night." Hearing her words, Lan Luofang could only return to the team. The pavilion that Yun Shuzhou was in at the moment was quite large. She entered the courtyard a few times before entering the second courtyard. Seeing that Yun Shuzhou had already left the others, the small silver snake lowered its voice and asked, "Are you really going to be a scout for the Mu family? It's not certain who will take advantage of who. Are you too stifled in your sleeve pocket? It'll let you out to get some fresh air," He Xinjiu said with a rare conscience. Yun Shuzhou immediately let out the small silver snake and let it coil around her arm. The small silver snake scanned its surroundings with its vertical pupils, and its gaze fell on a broken window lattice on the ground. After a long while, the small silver snake said, "I don't know why, but I feel that this place is somewhat familiar. It's just that I don't like it here." Yun Shuzhou casually said, "Weren't you the Lord of Shengzun in your previous life? Maybe you've been here before, so it's not surprising that you feel familiar. You're the Lord of Shengzun of Yan Clan, and this supreme city is the residence of the gods, so you naturally don't like it." Di Baiming thought about it, and this made sense. He saw that Yun Shuzhou had been using a wooden stick to dig through the ruins, and asked in puzzlement, "What are you looking for?" Yun Shuzhou giggled. "I'm just looking through it. I'm very curious about how those gods live. Look at this fragment. It should be a piece of a bowl. Whether it's the material or the decorative patterns, they are all very exquisite. It can be seen that the life of the original gods was very extravagant." Di Baiming looked at the fragment that Yun Shuzhou was pointing at and said with a hint of mockery, "Maybe it's because they were so unambitious and content with pleasure that they all died in the end. It's possible, but the cultivation of a god is so abnormal. Who is so powerful that they could annihilate the entire celestial race?" Yun Shuzhou asked in confusion. Di Baiming shook his head. "This has always been a mystery. Perhaps I will only know after I break all the seals." There were some dry bones occasionally found in these ruins, but these dry bones belonged to spirit beasts or demonic beasts. There were no human dry bones. At this time, the sky had already darkened. Seeing that there was nothing, Yun Shuzhou put the small silver snake back into her sleeve pocket and slowly walked out. After walking out of the second courtyard, Yun Shuzhou felt that something was wrong. Logically speaking, Mu Zian and the rest should have been camping on the street. Why was there no light ahead? Even if Mu Zian and the rest had encountered a wild beast, they should not have been so quiet. From the looks of it, there must be something wrong with where she was. If an ordinary person were to encounter such a situation, they would definitely be shocked and scared. However, the corner of He Xinjia's mouth curled up. Interesting. She stopped and raised her spiritual energy barrier. Then, she said with a smile, "Come out. What's the point of hiding?" There was no movement around them. Yun Shuzhou added, "TSK, TSK. Since you are so timid, don't follow my example and attack me at night. It's really embarrassing." Chapter 50-24, The Fox-like Beast. As soon as Yun Shuzhou finished speaking, a broken wall in front of them suddenly turned into a fox-like beast. The fox-like beast looked similar to a fox, except that it had two huge fangs on its mouth, emitting a faint blue light. Following the appearance of the fox-like beast, the people stationed outside noticed that the courtyard where Yunchujo entered was shrouded in thick fog. Lan Luofeng immediately stood up. Little Jiao is still inside. Did something happen? Let's go in and take a look. However, no one responded to her words. The three families of the Mu family didn't need to say anything. They couldn't be bothered to care about Yunchujia's life or death. Everyone from the Lan family had their own thoughts and didn't have any intention of saving her. Lan Luofeng stomped her feet in anger and charged towards the courtyard by herself. As she ran, she shouted, Little Jiao, are you all right? However, no one spoke. She gritted her teeth and charged into the thick fog. Lan Luoyen pursed her lips. What an idiot. It was good that she was dead. She deserved it. After Lan Luofeng charged into the fog, she saw Yunchujo and the fox-like beast immediately. She immediately ran to Yunchujia's side. The fox-like beast laughed strangely. Another one came in? Good, very good. We can have a good meal today. You two little things, kill yourselves. Yunchujo curled her lips. Where did you get the courage to make us kill ourselves? Could it be that your big teeth gave you the courage? The fox-like beast was stunned. The humans who came in here would be terrified when they saw them. Not only was this little girl not afraid, she even dared to mock its fangs. She was really courting death. The fox-like beast immediately roared. As it roared, Lan Luofeng's eyes became blurred. She could not help but walk towards the fox-like beast. Yunchujo took out a silver needle and pricked Lan Luofeng's arm. Lan Luofeng cried out in pain and immediately woke up. Yunchujo stuffed the needle into her hand. If you feel that something is wrong, stab yourself. The fox-like beast revealed a surprised expression. Why aren't you afraid of my demonic roar? Yunchujo snorted. It sounds so terrible, and you still have the nerve to call it a demonic roar? Do you want to dig out the pearl and give it to me, or do you want me to do it? The fox-like beast roared in exasperation. Stupid girl, do you think that's all I have? You're courting death. Yunchujo and Lan Luofeng hurriedly set up their spiritual energy shields and looked around vigilantly. Little Jiao, why did it suddenly disappear? Lan Luofeng asked as she pricked herself with a silver needle. Yunchujo couldn't help but laugh. That fox-like beast had stopped barking, so why was she still pricking it? However, this guy didn't warn Lan Luofeng, but said, that fox-like beast is good at illusion. It should have transformed into something else. Then what should we do? Yunchujo curled the corner of her mouth. It's simple. I'll let it appear on its own. As Yunchujo spoke, she threw a sack of chili noodles at her surroundings. Soon after, she heard the howling of the fox-like beast. Yunchujo struck out several bolts of lightning in the direction where the howling came from. Then, she heard the frightened voice of the fox-like beast. Heavenly Thunder Spirit Root. You actually have a Heavenly Thunder Spirit Root. Yunchujo did not reply. Instead, she shot out several bolts of lightning with flames mixed within. The fox-like beast let out a miserable cry and revealed itself. However, its fur had already been burned by the flames of the small flame, causing it to roll on the ground in pain. Chapter 50-25. Two delusional pearls in hand. Yunchujo raised her hand again and hacked at the fox-like delusional beast. The fox was cunning, and even if it was a delusional beast, she did not dare to be careless. The fox-like delusional beast should not have any other abilities other than the illusion and the previous phantom roar. Otherwise, it would not have set up a sneak attack here. After a moment, it was burned to death by Yunchujo. The fox-like beast's corpse disappeared, and a pearl appeared on the ground. Yunchujo went forward to pick up the pearl and looked at it. She sniffed it again, but she couldn't tell what it was. So, she put the pearl into her storage ring. At this time, the sound of a fight could be heard from outside. Lan Luofang's arm was pierced by dozens of needles. She was in so much pain that she asked, "Little Jiu, we seem to have encountered a beast outside. Should we go out and help?" Yun Shujo glanced at her. "Are you stupid? Why do you care about those idiots? Come, let's squat on top of the wall and watch the show." Lan Luofang thought of what had happened before and gritted her teeth. Those people did not care about little Jiu's life and death. They deserved it. Thus, she followed Yun Shujo and jumped on top of a broken wall, watching the fight not far away. At this time, the one fighting with Mu Zian and the others was a lizard-like beast. The lizard-like beast was very huge, and its forked tongue kept spitting venom. Mu Zian and the others could only use their spiritual energy barrier to fight with the lizard-like beast. Fortunately, there were many of them, and after nearly 15 minutes, they finally killed the lizard-like beast. After the lizard beast's corpse disappeared, there was a pearl on the ground. Because the toad pearl from before had been taken by Mu Zian, Zhuang Shichen and Qi Tianhui wanted to pick up the lizard pearl. However, the two of them were still concerned about their reputation, so neither of them had the face to go forward first. Just as the two of them were hesitating, someone picked up the lizard pearl first. TSK, you guys are quite particular. But that's true. Our Lan family is a new member, so naturally, we have to go first. As Yun Shujo spoke, she put the lizard pearl into her storage ring very naturally. Yun Shujo, hand over the pearl, or don't blame me for being rude. Yun Shujo did not even look at him. Instead, she found a relatively clean place to lay a blanket on and fell asleep. Qi Tianhui wanted to go forward, but he was stopped by Mu Zian. Mu Zian said softly, "Her things will fall into our hands sooner or later. Why should we lower ourselves to her level?" Zhuang Shichen also advised from the side. Qi Tianhui glared at Yun Shujo fiercely and gave up on the idea of attacking. Zhuang Shichen changed the topic and mentioned the lizard beast from before. "I think the lizard beast today is much weaker than the toad beast from yesterday." Qi Tianhui said proudly, "It seems that my guess yesterday was right. The toad beast from yesterday must have really escaped from the levitation layer. We don't have to worry too much." Zhuang Shichen and Mu Zian nodded. Mu Zian raised her eyebrows. "Oh right, why was there a fog in the courtyard that Yun Shujo entered?" "I'll call Lan Luofang over and ask." After Mu Zian finished speaking, she called Lan Luofang over. "What happened between you and Yun Shujo?" Yun Shujo had already instructed Lan Luofang when she was watching the show. Hence, Lan Luofang lied through her teeth. There was a mist inside. After Xiao Jiao and I met, we finally walked out. Chapter 50-26 is still on it. Mu Zian was skeptical of Lan Luofang's words and felt that Lan Luofang was not telling the truth. Qi Tianhui said with disdain, "If there's really something wrong inside, can they still come out alive? Who cares if there's anything wrong with them, we won't go in." Mu Zian thought about it and agreed, so she let Lan Luofang go back. Lan Luofang heaved a sigh of relief. She saw that the fox-like beast was burned to death by a ball of fire, not struck to death by Yun Shujia's heavenly lightning. Although she was very curious, she still tactfully did not ask Yun Shujo. When she came, Jia Shi had instructed her to follow Yun Shujo, and to listen more and ask less. She knew that not only was her strength weak, but her brain was also not very flexible, so she decided to listen to her mother's words and cling tightly to Yun Shujia's thigh. In the second half of the night, another lizard beast came to attack everyone. Everyone quickly fought with the lizard beast, and only He Xinjiu hid in the corner and continued to sleep soundly. Lan Luofang had finally opened her eyes. She did not put in any effort. Although she was shouting happily, she basically did not make any moves. When the lizard beast was killed, He Xinjiu rushed over with lightning speed and put away the bead again. Qi Tianhui was so angry that he wanted to kill Yun Shujiu. In the end, he was stopped by Mu Zian and Zhuang Shichen. Lan Luoshan looked at Yun Shujiu with disdain. Yun Shujiu was really courting death. Sooner or later, she would anger Qi Tianhui and see how she would end up. The next morning, everyone continued on their journey. As cannon fodder, the Lan family naturally led the way. Yun Shujiu hummed a tune as she hopped forward. It was as if this wasn't a dangerous place, but a sunny countryside. Everyone pursed their lips. This Yun Shujiu was really heartless. They didn't know why the Lan family chose her to be their leader. However, Yun Shujiu suddenly stopped and pointed at the ruins beside her. We were here yesterday. We should have gotten lost, right? Qi Tianhui said disdainfully, what nonsense are you talking about? We were clearly walking forward, how could we be lost? Moreover, the ruins on both sides are similar. How do you know that this is the place we passed by yesterday? Everyone followed Yun Shujiu's finger and looked over. Indeed, they saw a vivid picture of a little bastard on a broken wall. Everyone was dumbfounded. Even if they did not look closely, they knew that this little bastard was definitely not left behind. It must have been drawn by Yun Shujiu. After all, no one would be idle enough to draw a little bastard on the wall to play with. So, they were really lost? However, they had been walking along the street, how could they be lost? Zhuang Shichen looked at Yun Shujiu with some inquiry. Did she accidentally or intentionally mark the wall? However, the most important thing now was to get rid of the dilemma of being lost. However, how could they get rid of it? He looked up at the sun and said, I remember that the levitation layer is in the west. We will determine the direction according to the sun and not stick to these streets. Everyone immediately nodded in agreement and set off again. This time, when Yun Shujiu went to the ruins again, although everyone was still dissatisfied, they did not say anything. After all, if Yun Shujiu had not gone to the ruins earlier, they would still be walking in circles. Chapter 50-27 Wine. After walking for a while in the direction of the sun, they found that there was something strange about the streets here. They looked horizontal and vertical, but in fact, they were not. If they followed the direction of the streets, they would unknowingly turn in circles. They also found that as the journey progressed, the pavilions on both sides of the road were more and more intact. Although it was also very dilapidated, at least the original general structure could still be seen, unlike the previous ones, which were only left with broken walls. However, the group no longer had the courage to go in and search for it. Although the treasure was good, life was more important. Yun Shujiu did not care about that. Whichever house was pleasing to the eye, she would go in and take a look. Although they did not find any treasure, they managed to gather a large amount of rubbish and even removed a door plank from the house. Qi Tianhui wanted to throw a tantrum a few times, but he was stopped by Zhuang Shichen. Brother Qi, although Yun Shujiu is wandering around inside, she can catch up to us every time. She did not delay our progress, so let's not argue with her. Zhuang Shichen felt that Yun Shujiu was not simple. He might as well see what she wanted to do. Moreover, it was not too late to kill her after they found the enchantment. They had already traveled for 3 days, but they were still quite a distance away from the levitation layer. Everyone could not help but sigh at the magnificence of this supreme city. One could imagine how prosperous this supreme city was when it was prosperous back then. Yun Shujiu saw a dilapidated wine stall hanging at the entrance of a pavilion next to them. She could not help but raise her eyebrows. Could this place be a restaurant? TSK, a restaurant of the celestial race. She had to go in and take a look. Thus, this guy once again went into the pavilion. Everyone was already used to her going in to collect junk from time to time. They ignored her and continued to move forward. Anyway, after she finished digging, she would be able to catch up with them. After Yun Shujiu entered, she found that although it was very dilapidated inside, she could vaguely tell that there were counters and scattered tables. It seemed like it really was a restaurant. Since it was a restaurant, there should be good wine. Therefore, this guy ran to the backyard and rummaged through it. He then let out the peach blossoms to smell. It really let her find an extremely hidden underground wine cellar. When this guy saw that the wine cellar was filled with wine jars, he was so happy that his eyelashes were almost blooming. Damn, this wine was at least tens of thousands of years old. He was rich. The more he thought about it, the happier he became. He walked in front of a jar, carefully opened the wine seal on it, and then he was miserable. This wine was originally very fragrant and mellow. In addition to the fact that it had been sealed for such a long time, the smell of the wine inside had already become so strong that it was almost solid. Hei Shinjo, who had a poor tolerance for alcohol, passed out just like that. The peach blossom choked and passed out. If the small silver snake in his sleeve was not injured, the smell of alcohol would not have affected him. However, he was severely injured and had a snake body, so he was dizzy. Although he struggled hard, he still passed out. Mu Zian and the others realized that Yunchujo did not follow them. Although they were reluctant, they still sent people back to check. Lan Luofeng originally wanted to follow them, but Lan Luoshan asked Lan Luofeng and Mu Zian to say something. Mu Zian sent people to stop Lan Luofeng. Because the wine cellar was very hidden, the people sent to look around did not find Yunchujo, so they went back to report. Mu Zian and the others were in a hurry to go to the levitation layer, so after a discussion, they decided not to care about Yunchuji's life. Lan Luofeng was forced by the crowd, so she could only follow them and continue their journey. She hoped that Yunchujo would be safe and sound. Chapter 50-28. In the next 2 days, Mu Zian and the others' journey was considered smooth. Although the number of wild beasts that came to attack at night had increased, they had the advantage of numbers. It was not too strenuous and there were no casualties. That night, everyone found a place to temporarily camp. Qi Tianhui said with a slightly happy expression, "Tomorrow night, we should be able to reach the bottom of the levitation layer. It seems that this supreme city is not as terrifying as we imagined." Zhuang Shichen said with some disapproval, "Brother Qi, don't be too optimistic. It was said that the wild beasts in the levitation layer were much more terrifying than the wild beasts on the streets. Moreover, not only were there wild beasts, there were also many strange things. We cannot let down our guard." Qi Tianhui snorted coldly, "What are you afraid of? At worst, we can let the Lan family take the lead. It's just a pity that Yunchujo is already dead. It's too good for her." Zhuang Shichen frowned. Yunchujo might not be dead. Maybe she went somewhere else. That's impossible. She's not a fool. Supreme City is so dangerous. If she acts alone, she'll be courting death, Mu Zian said from the side. She was sure that Yunchujo must have met with an accident. She really deserved it. Zhuang Shichen did not say anything more when he saw the two of them say so. However, he felt that Yunchujo was not simple. How could she die so silently? There must be something else going on. At this moment, everyone from the Lan family was sitting together with different expressions. Lan Luofeng was worried about Yunchuji's safety and had a worried expression on her face. Lan Luoyen, on the other hand, had a gloating expression on her face. From time to time, she would use words to mock Lan Luofeng. Lan Luofeng had learned to be smart now. No matter how Lan Luofeng provoked her, she would not respond. She was alone now and did not have little Jiu to support her. It was better for her to endure at first. Lan Lushan's lips curled into a cold smile as she mocked in her heart. A bunch of idiots. At this moment, the ground began to tremble slightly. Everyone stood up in shock. What was going on? A moment later, someone pointed into the distance in horror. There. There are a lot of wild beasts. Everyone looked in the direction of his finger. Although the night was dark, they could still see several huge beast eyes that were flashing with a scarlet light. Everyone felt a chill under their feet. They did not have time to think and ran in the opposite direction of the beast group. They were afraid that if they were half a step slower, they would be caught by the wild beasts. The wild beasts behind them let out all kinds of strange cries. It was simply creepy. What made everyone even more desperate was that they did not run far before they realized that there were also several wild beasts blocking them not far away. Immediately, a Zhuang family disciple jumped into the pavilion that he was pointing at. Immediately after, there was a scream. Only then did everyone realize to their horror that the pavilion had already turned into a lizard wild beast. Not only that, the surrounding pavilions had also turned into 5 lizard wild beasts in an instant. Immediately, someone broke down and shouted, "It's over. We're dead." Everyone's faces turned extremely pale. They roughly looked at the more than 30 wild beasts blocking them from the front and back. No matter what, they had no way to kill so many wild beasts. Could it be that they could only wait for death? Mu Zian said coldly, "Time is tight. The Lan family is in charge of delaying the 3 lizard-like beasts in the north. The 3 of us will focus on dealing with the 3 lizard-like beasts in the south, trying to open up a breakthrough." When the Lan family heard this, their faces turned pale. Were they planning to abandon them? Chapter 50-29 You are the White Maiden. Even though the Lan family knew that the odds were stacked against them, they did not dare to disobey. After all, only the Mu family could open an opening for them to escape. They could only brace themselves to deal with the 3 lizard beasts in the north. Lan Luoshan and Lan Luohan looked at each other. Lan Luoshan shook her head vaguely and the 2 of them joined the battle. Fortunately, the Lan family members had seen the attacking methods of the lizard beasts before. After setting up the spiritual energy shield, they were not afraid of their venom for a short period of time. They just needed to avoid being entangled by their tongues. On the other side, Mu Zian and the others used their full strength to deal with the 3 lizard beasts in the south. Mu Zian, Qi Tianhui, and Zhuang Shichen were the targets that their families focused on nurturing. Naturally, they had many good things. They did not have time to hide anymore and took them out one by one. In addition, everyone was in a hurry to escape, and their potential was greater than usual. They actually killed 3 lizard beasts within a short period of time. Once the gap opened, everyone ran forward desperately, afraid that the other beasts would catch up to them. The Lan family members also followed closely behind. Fortunately, the lizard beasts were not fast, so they were able to escape and catch up with the Mu family members. Even though they knew that the other 3 families did not have good intentions towards them, if they left them, they would only die in Supreme City. At this moment, Lan Luomu faintly hoped that Yun Chuzhou was still alive. After all, when Yun Chuzhou was still around, their situation was not so passive. However, was she still alive? Of course, He Xinjiu was alive. However, at this moment, this fellow was throwing a tantrum. On that day, Yun Chuzhou and the others were drunk from the smell of alcohol. A moment ago, the silver snake was the first to wake up. After he woke up, he crawled out of Yun Chuzhou's sleeve and called Yun Chuzhou a few times. However, Yun Chuzhou was too drunk to wake up. The silver snake had no choice but to bite the back of this guy's hand, which woke He Xinjiu up from the pain. Before He Xinjiu opened her eyes, she cursed, "Damn it, which bastard dares to bite me?" A certain being, Yun Chuzhou, opened her eyes and saw the silver snake coiled around her wrist. She picked it up and threw it into the wine vat. "You stinky snake! I told you to bite me. I'll kill you. I'll kill you." The certain being was so angry that he almost fainted. He shouted loudly, "Ugly girl, stop! Are you crazy?" Hearing that, Yun Shujo stopped moving and looked at the small silver snake in her hand in confusion. Then, she giggled foolishly. As he spoke, he started singing, by Suzhen at the foot of Qingqing Mountain, cultivating in the cave for 1,000 years. Di Biming was so angry that his head was buzzing. What snake demon, what lady Bai? Was this ugly girl crazy or stupid? As he was fuming with anger, he heard Yun Shujo shout, "Ah, I remember now. You are not a snake demon, you are my gigolo." Di Biming finally heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that. Fortunately, he had returned to normal. However, he was obviously happy too early because he heard Yun Shujo continue, "Gigolo, hee, I heard that there are 2 snakes. Let me take a look." The silver snake immediately stiffened and used all its strength to break free from Yun Shujo's hand. Fortunately, Yun Shujo was drunk and did not have much strength. Otherwise, the small silver snake would be in a tragic situation. Chapter 50 30 Snake Wine. The small silver snake was embarrassed and angry, but it knew that it could not reason with Yun Shujo at the moment. It was just that it was a snake now, so it could not use the storage ring. Otherwise, it could use cold water to sober up the ugly thing. The small silver snake looked around. There was almost nothing else in the wine cellar except for the wine jar. How could it sober up the ugly girl? Just as the little silver snake was worrying, he saw Hei Shinjo staggering towards him and reaching out to grab him. The little silver snake had no choice but to dodge desperately in the wine cellar. "Little boy, don't run. Come, I'm very gentle. I won't hurt you," Hei Shinjo said slyly. The little silver snake naturally wouldn't believe her nonsense. He made up his mind that he would never let this guy drink wine again. Hei Shinjo caught the silver snake for a while, but she did not catch it. Instead, she tripped over the wine jar. The guy blinked his eyes and started crying. "Gigolo, my gigolo has run away. Woo-woo, why do I always have to be separated from the gigolo? Why can't the gigolo stay by my side? Woo-woo, I remember now. The gigolo has lost his memory. The gigolo doesn't love me anymore. I finally saved the gigolo, but he forgot about me. You white-eyed snake. You snake shimmy. You heartless snake, woo-woo, my heart hurts so much. My heart is about to break into pieces. I'm most likely going to die." The silver snake heard Yun Shuji's words and saw the tears rolling down Yun Shuji's face. It felt a throbbing pain in its heart and could not help but jump to her side. "Ugly girl, are you all right?" However, the next moment, he was held in Hei Xinjia's hand. "Haha. You stupid snake, you've been tricked, haven't you? Miss is going to check your body now. Don't be afraid." The silver snake was so angry that it almost died. This ugly girl was still full of evil when she was drunk. She was completely evil. It wanted to struggle, but Yun Shujo was obviously on guard. It struggled a few times, but could not break free. There was only one thought in its mind. It was over. It was going to lose its moral integrity. Hei Shinjo did not care what he thought. She said proudly, "Little guy, run. Let's see where you can run to this time." The guy was holding the head of the silver snake with one hand and the tail of the silver snake with the other. At the critical moment, the guy suddenly became a bit shy and gritted his teeth. "I need to drink some wine to boost my courage." Thus, this fellow squatted on the ground and lowered his head to drink the wine in the jar. Then, this fellow was miserable. Previously, just the smell of alcohol alone could make her pass out, and the wine in this jar was extremely rich. This fellow had just taken a sip when he once again passed out with his face facing the sky. The miserable silver snake was accidentally thrown into the wine jar. The silver snake's heart was like a dog's. Would he, a dignified overlord, become the snake in the snake wine? The silver snake hurriedly held its breath. It crawled out of the wine jar with great difficulty, but it had more or less absorbed the smell of alcohol. It was so miserable that it passed out. Before it passed out, a certain lord once again made up his mind. He was determined not to let the ugly girl drink again, even if it was the wedding night. When he thought of the wedding night, he remembered Tang Yuan, and 2 bloodlines appeared on his nose. Chapter 50-31 Rope Ladder. He Xinjiu was sleeping soundly in the wine cellar, while Mu Zian and the others were desperately trying to escape. Several wild beasts were chasing closely behind them, and the sky-shaking roars made people's hair stand on end in the middle of the night. The group did not bother to distinguish their direction and just ran forward, afraid that they would be caught by the wild beasts if they were half a step slower. The group originally thought that the wild beasts would disappear as usual at daybreak, but they were disappointed. Even though the sun was high up in the sky, the wild beasts had no intention of hiding. They continued to chase after them crazily. Zhuang Shichen panted as he said, "We can't go on like this. Even if we're tired, we'll die of exhaustion. We should run towards the west. After we enter the levitation layer, we might be able to catch our breath." The others did not have any objections and immediately followed him to run towards the west. Among these people, Lan Luofang's spiritual power was the lowest, so she gradually fell behind. She saw the approaching wild beast, and her heart was filled with panic. Her spiritual power was basically exhausted, and she could not run anymore. She took out pills to replenish her spiritual power and stuffed them into her mouth, but the amount of spiritual power she could replenish was really limited. There was no way to increase the distance between her and the wild beast. Was she going to die here? It would be great if little Jiu was here. She would definitely have a way to escape. When she thought of Yun Chujiu, her heart skipped a beat. Yun Chujiu had once stuffed a few bottles of pills into her mouth. The labels on the bottles were crooked. Some were for detoxification, some were for stopping bleeding, and some were for replenishing her spiritual power. Lan Luofang did not have time to think too much. She took out the bottle that was labeled for replenishing her spiritual power, poured out a pill, and stuffed it into her mouth. The medicinal pill melted in her mouth, and in an instant, spiritual power was injected into her dantian. Lan Luofang was overjoyed, and immediately used all her strength to chase after the people in front of her. Only then did Lan Luofang realize that the medicinal pill that she had swallowed previously actually had golden patterns. She had never heard of medicinal pills with golden patterns. Where did little Jiu get it from? Everyone had originally thought that Lan Luofang would definitely die in the end. Who would have thought that Lan Luofang would actually be able to catch up to her alive? Moreover, it seemed that her physical strength and spiritual power were very abundant. Everyone thought that Jia Shi had given her some high-grade spiritual power replenishing pill, so they didn't have much doubt. Finally, everyone arrived at the bottom of the levitating layer. When they saw the towering, imposing buildings in front of them, they were all overjoyed. It was said that there was a square outside the first level of the levitation layer. It was relatively safe up there. As long as they could reach that square, they would have some time to catch their breath. However, even the first level of the levitation layer was more than 100 feet above the ground. It was also forbidden to fly here. If they wanted to climb up, they could only climb up a rope ladder that hung down from above. The worst thing was that the pack of wild beasts had already caught up. Qi Tianhui and Zhuang Shichen followed closely behind. The Mu family and the other 2 families also squeezed to the front, leaving the Lan family members at the outermost edge. The Lan family members were angry and resentful. However, they knew that even if they did not listen to Mu Zian and forcefully climbed up the rope ladder, they would still be killed by the other 3 families when they reached the top. Those wild beasts stared at them with their scarlet eyes as they got closer and closer. Lan Luoshan and Lan Luohan looked at each other. Lan Luoshan fiercely pushed Lan Luoyen in front of her while Lan Luohan pushed Lan Luoji in front of him. Then, the two of them jumped towards the rope ladder. Chapter 50-32 had no place to stand. Lan Luoyen and Lan Luoji were pushed several feet away. Fortunately, they had set up their spiritual energy shields in time. Otherwise, they would have been poisoned to death by the lizard beast at the front. The two of them rolled and climbed up. They turned around and ran. The other members of the Lan family had already reached the bottom of the rope ladder. However, Lan Luoshan and Lan Luohan pulled the rope ladder up after they climbed up. Lan Luoshan held the rope ladder in her hand and said to Mu Zian, who was still in shock, "Sister Zian, this way, the wild beasts will not be able to climb up the rope ladder." Mu Zian's expression changed a few times. Just as she was about to say something, Zhuang Shichen said, "What Miss Luoshan said makes sense. If we don't put away the rope ladder, it will be bad if the smaller wild beasts climb up." Mu Zian didn't say anything else, but Qi Tianhui said, "TSK, the two of you are really ruthless. In order to survive, you don't even care about the lives of your companions." Lan Luohan's eyes were slightly cold. Lan Luoshan gently tugged at him and said gently, "We are also looking at the big picture. There's nothing we can do about it." Qi Tianhui curled his lips and didn't say anything. Anyway, the lives of the Lan family members had nothing to do with him. As for these two people, they would be their scapegoats sooner or later. The Lan family members naturally hated Lan Luohan and Lan Luoshan to death. However, the most important thing now was to escape. However, dozens of wild beasts had blocked all the directions. They had no way to escape. Lan Luomu gritted his teeth and took out a few packets of medicinal powder. "Everyone hold your breath and raise your spiritual energy shields." Everyone was now like a grasshopper on a rope. If one more person lived, they would have more strength. Therefore, Lan Luomu specially reminded everyone. Everyone held their breath and raised their spiritual energy shields. Lan Luomu threw the powder at the wild beasts. The poison powder was bought by the second elder at a high price. He specially gave it to Lan Luomu so that he could use it to save his life. Lan Luomu felt that although the poison powder might not be able to kill the wild beasts, it could at least give them a chance to escape. However, he never dreamed that the poison powder would have no effect on the wild beasts. Instead, it angered the wild beasts. Lan Luomu was instantly dumbfounded. At this moment, Lan Luofang shouted, "Watch me." Following her voice, Lan Luofang threw out a few large sacks. These were also given to her by Yunchujiu, and they were filled with chili noodles. The wild beasts thought that Lan Luofang was still throwing poison, so they used their claws to slap the sacks with disdain. The chili noodles in the sacks instantly flew in all directions. The wild beasts choked and cried. The Lan family members didn't have time to think about it. They took advantage of the gap between the wild beasts and ran out. Lan Luma's heart was like a dog crying. The poison he bought at a high price was useless, but Lan Luofang's chili powder was very effective. It was like seeing a ghost. When the people on the levitating layer saw that the Lan family members had actually used the chili powder to escape, they were all dumbfounded. However, they felt that even if the Lan family members escaped temporarily, it would be useless. Those wild beasts would eat them sooner or later. Lan Luomu and the others ran as fast as they could because they knew that once those wild beasts recovered, they would definitely intensify their pursuit and kill them. However, where could they escape to? The rope ladder on the levitating layer had been pulled up. They had no way to go up at all. The surface streets were full of danger, and there was no place for them in the great city. Chapter 50-33, "We're going to find little Jiu." Lan Luofang suddenly said, "We're going to find little Jiu." Only little Jiao can save us. What nonsense are you talking about? Yun Shujiao is already dead. Where are we going to find her? Lan Luoyan said angrily. However, because it was Lan Luofang who saved everyone this time, she liked Lan Luofang a little. Lan Luofang said with certainty, little Jiao is so smart that she won't die. Something must have gone wrong. Let's go to the house where she went missing and we will definitely find clues. Lan Luoqing snorted coldly, let's not talk about whether she is still alive or not. This place is 3 days away from the house where she went missing. I'm afraid we won't live until then. Lan Luofang bit her lip. No matter what, I have to go back and look for little Jiao. If it weren't for little Jiao, we wouldn't be able to leave this place alive. After saying that, Lan Luofang directly ran in the direction she came from. Lan Luomu and Lan Luoji looked at each other and chased after Lan Luofang. Seeing this, the others could only follow her. Now, they could only try their best. However, everyone's physical strength and spiritual power were limited after all. After running for a while, they could not run anymore. Although the wild beasts slowed down slightly, their physical strength was much better than theirs. The distance between them was getting shorter and shorter. Lan Luofang recalled that Yun Shujiao had burned the fox wild beast to death. She felt that these wild beasts should be afraid of fire, so she said to everyone, we passed through the house. Lan Luoyan, you are in charge of setting the fire. Perhaps you can stop them for a while. Lan Luofang's words were now a life-saving straw. Lan Luoyan was not in the mood to disagree with her, so she immediately transformed into a fire butterfly. The fire butterfly already had some initial intelligence. It specially picked some combustible things to light up. In an instant, the house they entered was on fire. Those wild beasts seemed to be afraid of the fire, so they hesitated. Some of them even tried their best to spray poison on the volcano, as if they wanted to put out the fire. Everyone was overjoyed. No matter what, they could at least slow down the speed of these wild beasts. However, they did not dare to set a large area on fire. After all, if the fire spread too far, they would also be burned to death. Thus, the Lan family members set fire to the restaurant where Yun Shujiao disappeared. Lan Luofang, I told you, that Yun Shujiao is definitely dead. Lan Luoyan muttered. Lan Luofang shook her head. Little Jiao was full of evil. Even if she died, she wouldn't die so quietly. She definitely wasn't dead. However, how did this person disappear into thin air? At this moment, everyone heard someone say carelessly, Lan Luoyan, who did you say was dead? Are you asking for a beating again? Everyone followed the voice and looked over. Who was the one who spoke, if not Yun Shujiao? However, how did she appear out of thin air? He Xinjiao naturally did not appear out of thin air. 3 days ago, after this fellow passed out from being drunk again, the little silver snake also passed out due to nosebleeds. As the wine was too strong, even though He Xinjiao only took a sip, she slept for 3 days. As the little silver snake was thrown into the wine jar, it struggled to get out, but it was still very drunk. Fortunately, Peach Blossom was only drunk from the smell of alcohol. When the Lan family came in, Peach Blossom was awakened. Peach Blossom together call with drag, finally He Xinjiao to wake up. Chapter 50-34 took action. 1 was worth 2, Master, use some water to wake yourself up. Someone is coming. Peach Blossom said with her spiritual sense. As she had slept for a long time this time, He Xinjiao was clearer than before. She immediately poured a basin of cold water on herself and shivered a few times. She felt much more awake. When she saw the small silver snake lying beside the wine jar, the corner of her eyes twitched because she saw 2 dried blood stains under the nose of the small silver snake. He Xinjiao had been too drunk before, so she had no impression of her crazy drinking behavior. When she saw the small silver snake like this, she cursed in her heart, "Pooey. Could this pervert have taken advantage of her drunkenness to do something immoral?" However, she had no time to settle the score with Dee Biming now. She put the peach blossom into her spirit beast bag, the small silver snake into her sleeve bag, and then put all the wine in the wine cellar into her storage ring. However, this fellow discovered that most of the wine jars in the wine cellar were empty. This fellow almost died from anger. She thought that she had struck it rich, but it turned out to be an empty joy. Fortunately, some of the jars were full, or else she would have cried herself to death. This wine cellar was hidden under a room. Yun Shujo tilted her ear to listen for the sounds outside. When she heard that it was the Lan family, she heaved a sigh of relief in her heart, and only then did she reveal herself. When Lan Luofang saw Yun Shujo, she could not help but be surprised and happy. She ran over and grabbed Yun Shujia's arm. "Little Jiu, it's great that you're all right." Lan Luoyen pouted and muttered, "Sure enough, a scourge lives for 1,000 years." Yun Shujo could not be bothered with her. She asked, "Are you guys back to look for me? Where are the others?" This fellow did not know that she had slept for a few days. She thought that she had only slept for a short while. When she heard Lan Luofang's story, she realized that she had been drunk for a few days. Just when she was in a daze, Lan Luoyen sniffed. Why is there such a strong smell of alcohol?" Lan Luoyen sniffed and her gaze fell on Yun Shujo. "Good. Yun Shujo, you've been hiding and drinking these few days. You're our captain. Are you worthy of our ancestors' trust?" Yun Shujo touched her nose guiltily. Even though she had changed into a new set of clothes, the wine in the wine cellar was too strong, so it was still stained with the smell of alcohol. To be honest, she did not expect to be drunk for so many days just by opening the wine jar. This time, she was careless. However, this guy wanted to lose without losing, so he snorted and said, "Now you admit that I'm the captain? That's not what you said before." Yun Shujo decided to redeem herself as the captain. She waved her claws and said, "You guys run first. I'll hold them off." Lan Luofang said worriedly, "Little Jiu, there are more than 30 wild beasts. Can you handle them?" Don't worry. The captain will take care of them. You guys run first. If I can't handle them, I will chase after you," Yun Shujo said heroically. Lan Luoyen curled her lips. No matter what, this Yun Shujo was at least much stronger than that damn Lan Luoshan. That bitch. She thought she was a good person, but in the end, she actually stabbed them in the back. If there was a chance, she would definitely kill that bitch. Immediately, the Lan family members ran away in a hurry, leaving only Hei Shinjo alone. Hei Shinjo jumped onto the wall, nibbling on a meat bun while looking at the approaching wild beasts in the distance with a smile. The reason why it was let out was to divert the attention of the wild beasts, so that she could use small flames to sneak attack. However, Goei Butsao did not know. This fellow was feeling pretty good now. It was waving its leaves so hard that they were about to fly away. Yun Shujo saw how cocky it was and could not help but twitch the corner of her mouth. She scolded, "Don't be so cocky. Go on. Whip them all away." After saying that, Yun Shujo hid behind Goei Butsao and prepared to launch a sneak attack. Goei Butsao felt that it was not appropriate for it to send these wild beasts flying in a rough manner. Therefore, it decided to make a beautiful pose, such as a white crane flapping its wings. However, this fellow did not notice that Hei Shinjo was hiding behind it. She was in a good position, and Hei Shinjo was also sent flying by it. Moreover, the direction of the flying was coincidentally in the middle of the wild beasts. Chapter 50-36. It was in trouble. There was only one thought in Hei Xinjia's mind. She wanted to tear that damned Gowei Batsao into pieces. Gowei Batsao was also dumbfounded. It was over. It was in trouble. It was in big trouble. It was 80% certain that it would not be able to see the sun tomorrow. Gowei Batsao wanted to save Hei Xinjiu, but the distance was too far. It had no way of using its leaves to catch Yunchujiu. The group of wild beasts were also dumbfounded. Was this brat's spiritual beast having a stroke? Why would it help them take care of that brat? No matter what, this brat was dead meat. Several wild beasts opened their mouths wide and stretched out their claws, ready to swallow Hei Xinjiu, who had fallen down. However, Yunchujiu did not fall down. Instead, a few sacks of chili noodles fell down. Although the wild beasts had suffered a loss once, they were still caught in the crossfire. Each and every one of them was choked with tears and tears. It turned out that at the critical moment, Yunchujiu had an idea. She threw out a sticky thread and wrapped it around a protruding piece of wood in the pavilion next to her. Only then did she not fall into the herd of wild beasts. Gowei Batsao saw that Yunchujiu was safe and sound, and it heaved a sigh of relief in its heart. With the intention of atoning for its sins, it did not care about its posture anymore. It began to use its leaves to whip the wild beasts. As the wild beasts were snot-covered with tears due to the chili, they were not aware of it. A few wild beasts were hit by the leaves of Gowei Batsao, and their huge bodies were instantly sent flying. However, after the wild beasts regained their senses, Gowei Batsao was not as relaxed. The Gowei Batsao quickly dimmed and then dissipated. The strange grass in its dantian was secretly resentful. If it had not condensed 2 drops of juice for that fiend, how could it be afraid of these dregs? Most importantly, it had caused trouble this time. That black-hearted little girl would definitely not let it off. Why was its life so miserable? Seeing that the Gowei Batsao had dissipated, Yunchujiu condensed her spiritual power again and released it. Although this fellow's brain was not very good, it had brute force and could be of help. They raised all the pavilions next to them to the ground, so that Yunchujiu had no place to hide. Yunchujiu immediately released all the dumb cuties. Training soldiers for 1,000 days and using soldiers for a while, these foodies should also make a contribution. The silly cuties took the lead one by one, especially the little salamander. It wanted to show off in front of the peach blossoms and crush butt face, so it was working hard. Although it was forbidden to fly here, and the little salamander could only fly about 30 feet high, those beasts seemed to be more afraid of fire-type attacks. The little salamander was like a fish in water. Buttface secretly hid in the distance and watched, cursing in his heart. If it didn't use its cultivation to transform into a physical form, how would this little bug be able to show off here? Just wait and see. Sooner or later, Buttface would blind his and the female's snobbish eyes. Hei Xinjiu did not stay idle either. She constantly used heavenly lightning, small flames, and purple needles to launch sneak attacks. The wild beasts seemed to be quite afraid of Yunchujiu's methods. In addition to the silly cuties and the perverted Guai Chao, they gradually had the intention to retreat. Therefore, after a few wild beasts were killed, the rest of the wild beasts fled in panic. Yunchujiu did not chase after them. It was not like she had to kill them. The most important thing now was to hurry to the levitation layer. Yunchujiu put away the silly beasts. She thought for a while and released the giant rabbit. Then, she rode the rabbit to find Lan Luofang and the others. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.